Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the work session for January 9th, 2023. Happy New Year, everybody. And to start off the new year, we have our elections today. And so for that, I will go ahead and turn it over to you, Mr. Chairman, before we go over agenda review. And take it away.
Okay, thanks, Crystal. Well, team, how do we feel about this evening? We do have elections on our agenda. It's been proposed that we may punt. Do we have John with us online?
Mr. Chair, he is there, yes.
Yeah, there's John. Hey, John. It was right before, right when we arrived, it was proposed that maybe we hold on elections until next month if we want to have a few more of our fellow commissioners present. How does everyone feel about that idea?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Gillespie.
is obviously the issue to me is if either Janelle or Jennifer would like to be chairman, it would be unfortunate to move past them. I don't know. I don't think Meredith wants to. I think it would be best practice to not to have Meredith be the chairman again, but it's fine if she wants to.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know where Jennifer or Janelle are in terms of what they want. So that's why I, in the absence of knowing, would at least want them to be here. Or I even thought of reaching out to them today. I just didn't do it. Just see what they want to do. So
Gotcha. Yeah, and I'm afraid I don't have any insight on how they're feeling either at this point.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Squires.
when we had a conversation about it being elections at the last meeting, no one was raising their hand saying that they wanted to do it. I mean, we even talked about, well, would Bob be, consider doing it a second term? So I don't think personally that it's going to be an issue. I think if it were, someone would have said something at this point. They're clearly not here. We know this is the night of elections, and I would just propose that we move forward.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
All
Very
right.
good. All right.
So who wants to do it? Come on.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Blanchard. Sorry.
I will not be a candidate and I will accept that result. I would like to nominate that we continue on with Bob Schaefer as chair, and I would like to nominate Chris Stanley as vice chair.
Second.
All right. Very good. I've got a motion for me to continue as chair and Mr. Danley as vice chair. We have a second on that motion. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Gillespie.
do you consent to this madness? Which is surely reason to disqualify you, but being
Certainly,
as
certainly.
it may.
No, I appreciate the nomination and I would continue. I appreciate the nomination and I would continue on as chair.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Danley, of course. Yeah. To you, sir.
I just wanted to say in front of all these people. No, but in all truth and all honesty, I just think it's important that positive things are said out loud. And I just want to take a minute, and I think I'm speaking on pretty much everybody on behalf of P&Z, that just kudos to you. I think that this last year we've had, obviously a number of difficult hearings at times, just like every year, I guess. But to your credit, I think that you've done a fantastic job. Your demeanor, the way that you interact with the public, and the technology that was thrust upon you and forced upon you with Zoom, which is a bit of a, it's permanent now, but a little new. I just wanted to say congratulations on a good year. And I know that this is going to be an even better year for you coming up. And so good job.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Danley.
Mr. Chairman, I
Commissioner
call
Gillespie.
the question.
I'm sorry.
I call the question.
You call the question.
Let's vote.
Let's do it. I know you want to do it. Okay. All right.
Mr. Chair, a quick moment of clarification. Who seconded the motion? Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Blanchard was the motioner and Commissioner Squires was the seconder.
And I think you lead the vote. I don't think the clerk does it. This
Oh,
is
do I lead the vote?
internal
Is that how
to
that
us.
works? All right. So
This is not
this is actually, we're not in work. Yeah.
it's
we're in
not a
work session.
formal motion of the planning and zoning committee. It's just between us guys
Gotcha,
and girls.
gotcha. So I'll go ahead and call the vote
Knew that,
please.
though.
All right. I'm just going to run down the list here. Commissioner
Nay.
Stead is absent. Commissioner Schaefer, aye. Commissioner Squires,
Aye.
Commissioner Blanchard,
Aye.
Commissioner Moore is absent. Commissioner Gillespie,
I,
Commissioner Finfrock is absent. Commissioner Danley
I,
and Commissioner Mooney online.
Aye.
Very good. Ayes have it. All right. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Commissioner Danley, congratulations, co-chair.
thank you, sir. More free salads for the next year.
I love it. Yeah, I like this. I like it.
Beautiful. That went great in 2023. Love it.
We're winning so far.
Woo. All right, so let's hop into agenda review. Oh, but before we go over tonight's agenda, I just wanted to flag for everybody to reserve the 24th through the 27th. We're going to have of April
Okay. Oh.
for zoning code rewrite. That's the tentative dates right now. I will let you know when that becomes finalized, but just wanted to get that out there right now.
Is that a night, evening, or is that you were talking about daytime?
I believe right now it's just evening, but we'll
Okay.
let you know as we work through that for sure.
What? What?
That's right. That's definitely what you're doing. You're going to Mandalay
Yeah.
Bay. All right. Okay, with that, we can hop
Push
into the
buttons.
agenda. All right.
Mr. Chair, I got a question for Crystal.
Oh, what was that?
I got a question for Crystal, Mr. Chair.
Okay, go for it, John.
So what, so there's 2 meetings, we have 2 hearings in February, is that correct? Do we have one next week as well?
No, sir. Just the one this month and then back to 2 starting in February.
Got it, thanks.
Maybe the regular. Crystal,
I'll-
would you mind maybe sending us an email about April 24th to 27th? Because otherwise I
Absolutely.
will not remember.
Definitely. I just wanted to get that out here right now. So it's no surprises. And then we will follow up when we get details finalized.
Okay, thanks.
Great. So we have a big agenda tonight. We have had a number of deferrals from last month. So there's that. We do, as you just clarified, have 2 hearings next month. So if we do have to call it early and we don't get through everything, we can just push it to next month. So no worries about that. No need to kill ourselves going late tonight. So
Okay.
it's at your discretion. But the first 2 things we have are 2 time extensions, items A and B. The first one is for CUP 1896 and CVA 1868 for BRS Architects. It is at 2370 South Maple Grove Road, and it's a 2-year time extension for a conditional use permit for outdoor storage within a self-storage facility in an M1D DA zone. And then there's also a variance to encroach into the rear and side setbacks. That was also included in that. So we can try for that on the consent agenda. Item B is CVA 2034 with Rodney Evans and Partners LLC. That's at 1511 South Robert Street. It is a request for a 2-year time extension for a variance to encroach into the side setback associated with a 4-story residential building containing 16 units in an RODDA zone. We are recommending to approve that time extension as well. So we can put those 2 on the consent agenda.
So Crystal, both of those, we have to, I'm sorry, to open those up and ask the applicant, or we can just place them on,
You can just place
we're
them.
just placing them on the.
There's no
on-
public hearing
Right,
there.
okay.
Yep.
Great, thanks.
Yes, sir. Item 1 is CAR 2234 with Pivot North Architecture. This was deferred from December 5th, 2022. It is a rezone request at 672 South Ash Street, approximately 0.87 acres from an RODD residential office with downtown design review to C5DDDA central business with downtown design review and development agreement zone. That is a mouthful. Say that 5 times fast. We are recommending approval, but we are hearing that tonight due to some folks expected to show up.
Okay.
Item 2 is CUP 2259 with Erstat Architects at 114 South 23rd Street. It's a conditional use permit for a parking reduction associated with a new multifamily development in a C5 DD zone. We are recommending approval, but we did receive a letter of opposition. So we will be hearing that. Item 3 is back again. It's CAR 2211, PUD 2228, and SUB 2235. at 6776 East Warm Spring Avenue. This is an annexation of approximately 3.2 acres to R2D DA. Conditional use permit for a planned residential development comprised of 33 attached single-family townhomes, and then a preliminary plat for a residential subdivision comprised of 33 buildable and 3 common lots on 3.2 acres in that proposed R2D DA zone. We are recommending approval, but we do have some neighborhood opposition, so we will be hearing that one this evening as well. Item 4 is PUD 2269. It's again with Rodney Evans and Partners LLC. It's at 911 North Shamrock Street. And this is a modification to a previous conditional use permit for a planned residential development of 24 single family dwellings. We are recommending approval on the request to modify condition 4 and a denial to modify condition 3. So we will be hearing that.
Yeah.
Item 5 is PUD 2262 and SUB 2264 with platform architecture design. That's at 1022 West Hargey Street. It's a conditional use permit for a planned residential development of 4 single-family units on half an acre in an R1C zone, and then a preliminary plat for 4 buildable and 1 common lots. We are recommending approval, but the applicant is in opposition to condition number 2, requiring detached sidewalks with a landscape buffer. So we will be hearing that one.
Are you out? That's when you're refusing on? Is that right?
No, I'm.
Sorry. I'm 2. Okay. Sorry, Crystal. I
Sorry.
derailed you there.
May I continue?
You may. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Item 6. Okay, I lost my place. Item 6 is PUD 2253 and SUB 2255. This is with Rodney Evans and Partners PLLC. And this is at 478 and 506 West Highland Street. It's a conditional use permit for PUD comprised of 5 single-family units on just over half an acre in an R1C zone, and an accompanying preliminary plat for 1 common and 5 buildable lots. We are recommending approval, but we did have neighborhood opposition on that, so we will be hearing it. Item 7 is PUD 2239 and SUB 2250 with new design architecture at 7777 West Fairview Ave. They're requesting deferral, not to a date certain, they just deferred to another day. So that is what we are recommending. Item 8.
So,
go
sorry.
ahead.
So we're deferring just to the future.
Yep, just deferred.
Okay.
Yep, into the oblivion. And then item 8 is Sierra 2236 for Raya LLC at 7050 South Federal Way. This is an annexation of approximately 4.16 acres to an M1D light industrial with design review zone. We are recommending approval, and we can try for consent on that one. Item 9 is CUP 2260 for Yesco LLC at 355 South 3rd Street. It's a CUP to add an electric message display to an existing monument sign associated with a bank on 0.919 acres in an RODD zone. We are recommending approval, and we can try for consent on that. Item 10 is CVA 2235 with Ørsted Architects. That's at 1005 West Grove Street. It's a variance to exceed the maximum floor area ratio for non-residential use on 0.89 acres in the downtown C5DD zone. We are recommending approval, and so we can try for consent on that. Just a note, I will be presenting that item if it does need a public hearing.
Okay, that's 10.
And then last but not least is CUP 2264 for Pet Sitter of Boise. It's at 4202 West Overland Road. It's a CUP for an animal boarding facility on 0.79 acres in a C2D general commercial with design review zone. We are recommending approval, and we can try for consent on that one. So just to quick sum it up, we will be hearing item 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We can we can defer 7, and then we can try for consent on A, B, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And with that, it is time to start.
Look at that.
All right.
Okay.
So good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Boise City Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing. A few things to start out with for tonight's proceedings. Everyone from the public entering the hearing virtually has been automatically muted and cannot speak. As the item you're interested in comes up for discussion, you'll be called upon and unmuted. There is a chat function in Zoom. However, this is not part of the record and should only be used if technical difficulties arise. Our procedures for public hearings begin with a presentation from the planning team. Then we'll go to the applicant and then the representative of the Registered Neighborhood Association, followed by questions from the commission. After that, we proceed to public testimony, starting with those who are in person, then who signed up on the sign-up sheets in advance, and then anyone else who raises their hand virtually. If you are attending through your telephone, you can type in *9 to raise your hand. Each member of the public is allowed up to 3 minutes for testimony. We are strict this time as it is limited in code. Finally, the applicant is allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal, after which the hearing will be closed and the commission will deliberate and render a decision. Mr. Chair, you have the floor.
Thanks, Crystal. Good evening. We are citizen volunteers appointed by the mayor and approved by the city council. We make final decisions on conditional use permits, variances, and appeals, and recommendations to the city council on subdivisions, rezones, annexations, and code or comprehensive plan amendments. Any decision made tonight may be appealed to the city council, provided that the appeal is filed within 10 days of this hearing. In order to file an appeal, you must have given written or oral testimony at tonight's meeting. That's why it's important to give your name and address when you testify tonight. We utilize a consent agenda. This means that if the applicant agrees with the staff report, and if there is no public opposition, that item will be placed on the consent agenda. All items that are placed on the consent agenda are approved with one motion without further public comment. For items not on the consent agenda, we will hold a full public hearing in the order just detailed a few minutes ago with staff, applicant, neighborhood association, and then public testimony. Thank you all for attending tonight. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Stood. Schaefer,
Here.
Squires,
Here.
Blanchard,
Here.
Moore, Gillespie,
Here.
Hinfrog, Stanley,
Here.
Mooney,
Here.
6 present, 3 absent.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we've got a pretty full agenda this evening. I think we'll take up the deferral first and then move on to consent after that. So we're going to jump ahead right up to item number 7 to start out. This is item PUD 22-39, new design architecture. Project address is 7777 West Fairview Avenue. It's a conditional use permit for a planned residential development comprised of 16 single-family units on 2.1 acres in a C2D zone. And then there's the associated preliminary plat, that's SUB 22-50. I understand that the applicant would like to defer this item to a date in the future. Is the applicant with us tonight? Okay, applicant's not present, so I'm going to go ahead and take that as they'd like to defer this item. Since we don't have a date for this hearing, I'm going to go ahead and just entertain a motion at this point to defer this item to a future date to be determined.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Gillespie?
would you like to see if anyone's here to testify on item?
Yeah, yes. Is there anyone, well, I mean, I'm concerned that we don't have an applicant and then we don't know where they're going to,
Just checking.
yeah. Well, it's a valid question. Is there anyone here that would like to testify in opposition to either of these items? It's PUD 22-39 and SUB 22-50. Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Gillespie.
I move that we defer item 7 to a date in the future.
Second.
Great, thank you. I have a motion to defer to the future by Commissioner Gillespie and a second by Commissioner Danley. Any further discussion? Very good. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Schaefer,
Aye.
Squires,
Aye.
Blanchard,
Aye.
Gillespie.
Aye.
Stanley,
Aye.
Mooney,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, next we'll take up the items that are eligible for the consent agenda. Without objection, I'll place the minutes from our December 5th, 2022 and our December 12th, 2022 meetings on the consent agenda. And then next for consideration is item A. This is CUP 18-96 and CVA 18-68. Project address is 2370 South Maple Grove Road. This is Applicants requesting a 2-year time extension on this conditional use permit application. Without objection, I'll go ahead and place that item on the consent agenda. And then likewise, item B is CVA 20-34 Rodney Evans and Partners LLC. Project address is 1511 South Robert Street. Here again, this applicant is requesting a 2-year time extension on this particular project, which is a variance to encroach into the side setbacks. So without objection, I'll place item B on the consent agenda. And then jumping ahead up to item number 8. This is CAR 22-36 RIA LLC at 7050 South Federal Way. This is an annexation of approximately 4.16 acres with an M1D zone. Is the applicant present tonight? Okay, and is there anyone here hoping to speak in opposition to this item? Again, this is item number 8, CAR 22-36.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Mooney.
Yeah, I see the applicant is online as an attendee.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that.
Confirming that you can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, I'm open to any questions on the application if that's what's required. My name's Scott Meikle and I represent RIA LLC in this application.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Meagle. And are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report? Okay, terrific. Okay, and is there anyone again here to speak in opposition to this item? Got a hand up online.
That's me, I think.
Okay, gotcha. No, I'm sorry. I got Mr. Now hands down. Staff, we good? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and place item number 8 on the consent agenda. Okay, up next, item number 9. This is CUP 22-60 Yesco LLC at 355 South 3rd Street. This is a conditional use permit to add an electronic message display to an existing monument sign associated with an existing financial institution on 0.19 acres in RODD zone. Is the applicant present? See a hand up online. See 2 hands up online.
Yes, I'm present online.
Great, thank you. And
Sean
are you in
Again.
agreement? You in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report?
Yes,
Okay, thank you very much. And is there anyone present tonight that was hoping to speak in opposition to this item?
There is a hand raised online.
Okay. Mr. Olson? Yep, looks like Mr. Olson put his hand down. So we'll go ahead and place item number 9 on the consent agenda. Up next is item number 10, CVA 22-35 Erstad Architects at 1005 West Grove Street. This is a variance to exceed the maximum floor area ratio for non-residential uses on 0.89 acres in a C5 DD zone. And is the applicant present this evening?
Yes, we are.
And are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report?
Yes, sir, we are.
Great. Let the record show the applicant is present and in agreement with the staff report. And is there anyone here that is hoping to speak in opposition to this item? Okay, very good. We'll go ahead and place item 10 on the consent agenda. And last but not least is item number 11. This is CUP 22-64 Pet Sitter of Boise at 4202 West Overland Road. Conditional use permit for an animal boarding facility on 0.79 acres in a C2D zone. And is the applicant present? Got a hand up online. Ms. Frederick?
Hello? Yes, I'm here.
Hi there.
Can you hear me?
I
Okay,
can hear
sorry.
you, yes. And are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report?
Yes,
Okay, very good. Thank you. And is there anyone present that would like to speak in opposition to this item? Okay, very good. We'll go ahead and place item 11 on the consent agenda. I believe at this point, I will entertain a motion regarding the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Danley,
I'd make a motion that we approve the consent agenda inclusive of meeting minutes from December 5th and 12th. Item A, a time extension, 2370 South Maple Grove Road. Item B, a time extension for 1511 South Roberts Street. And item 8, an annexation request at 7050 South Federal Way. Item 9, a conditional use permit application at 355 South 3rd Street. Item number 10, a variance at 1005 West Grove Street. And item number 11, a conditional use permit request at 4202 West Overland Road be approved with their respective terms and conditions in each of their staff reports.
Second.
thank you. Got a motion to approve the consent agenda by Commissioner Danley with a second by Commissioner Squires. Any further discussion? Very good. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Schaefer.
Aye.
Squires.
Aye.
Blanchard.
Aye.
Gillespie. Stanley.
Aye.
Rooney.
Aye.
All in favor. Motion carries.
Okay. Great. We will now return back to the top of our agenda and carry on with new business, starting with item number 1. This is CAR 22-34 Pivot North Architecture. This was deferred from our meeting on December 5th of last year. Address is 672 South Ash Street. This is a rezone of approximately 0.887 acres from RODD to C5DD with a DA. First, we're going to hear from staff, Jesse Lyle.
Just getting technology, missing a cable.
Okay, gotcha. You gonna sit tight for a minute?
We're good.
There it is.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. The item before you is CAR 22-34, a rezone of approximately 0.87 acres from RODD to C5DDA located at 672 Ash Street. The property is designated as mixed use on the future land use map, and other designations nearby include downtown mixed use, the BSU master plan, and parks and open space. The applicant is requesting to rezone 4 parcels that contain a total of 16 naturally occurring affordable units. The properties are located in the Pioneer Neighborhood District of the River Street Master Plan and are adjacent to 2 transit routes, with the nearest stop approximately 350 feet to the northwest. The master plan emphasizes sustainability and the provision of workforce housing. It also identifies the areas of the edge of the neighborhood, such as the subject property, to redevelop with neighborhood serving commercial uses. Due to these recommendations, a development agreement is recommended. The draft development agreement includes provision to provide units reserved for tenants making 100% of the area median income or below, in coordination with CCDC, to provide for some commercial space on either end of the project and to incorporate sustainability techniques, among other things. The applicant is proposing a mixture of studio to 2-bedroom units with podium parking and activated uses on the ground floor. In conclusion, the planning team recommends approval, and I'll be happy to stand for any questions.
Okay, thanks, Jesse. Next, we'll hear from the applicant. Yeah, of course. If you guys can start with your name and address, please, for the record, in about 10 minutes.
Yes, my name is Ian McLaughlin. I'm with Pivot North Architects. Address is 116 South 6th Street, Boise, Idaho. And this is Dean.
Yep, Dean Pape with the Chase Mixus, 731 West Windermere, Boise, Idaho. Thank you, commissioners, chairman. I think it's important to really understand three very key things and the reasons why we're standing before you today. As mentioned before, the new zoning that's planned for this area is ultimately could be built there by right. This is really a timing question on trying to get the current units that are there built into the current project. And we have a funding support through CCDC that will allow us to do that. So timing becomes very critical. So the attainable housing is a major part of that. So we've been working with CCDC and with the City Housing and Community Development Division to try and craft language around a development agreement that we can move forward with and be successful to build this project and build those units within the project. So approval tonight helps us move forward with that plan. Anything that would slow that down is an hindrance because the urban renewal district that this currently sits in does expire. And our timeline is very tight to complete this project within the timeline of that district expiring. So with that, I'm gonna let Ian really dive into the documents and give you some more insight on what we plan to build. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Dean. All right. Let's see if I can figure out how to use this. There we go. This is a quick snapshot of that timeline that Dean was referencing. The big picture item there is the CCDC district closing May 2025. So that's kind of when we're targeting completion of the project. I'll kind of gloss through some of the contextual information that Jesse already covered. So as Jesse said, we're on River Street, hemmed in by 11th to the east and Ash Street to the west. Currently in a RODD with a C5 directly adjacent to us. So again, we are asking for a rezone to that C5 district with the C5 right adjacent to us. I feel that that is appropriate. This is just a snapshot of the currently the zoning code rewrite conversion map. So as you can see, that area is slated for a MX5, which is the equivalent of a C5 today. Land use map. So the land use falls under mixed use. We feel that what we're proposing with the multifamily residential and ground floor commercial space falls right into that category. This is the activities center supportive map. So this kind of highlights areas that are supported for increased height and increased density. So we feel that our ask of the rezone is appropriate in that area. And then I wanted to dive in a little bit on the River Street master plan. So we fall in the Pioneer neighborhood area. And as you can see, there are several projects that provide a variety of housing, all the way from shelter housing, affordable senior housing, market rate, workforce. And so we really view this project as contributing to that neighborhood, adding to that diverse, affordable mixed use area. One of the other key components that we were reviewing with the Pioneer neighborhood is the incorporation of the commercial on the periphery. So we're kind of on the southeast on 11th Street. So incorporating commercial space at that street. Existing site, as Jesse noted, is 4 two-story apartment buildings. Some contextual images for reference. What we're proposing is a 5/1 podium style building with 2 levels of parking. Ground floor has commercial off of 11th and River. We felt like that was the more appropriate location for it, kind of off the busier street, whereas the residential lobby and entry is off of Ash Street, kind of facing a more residential area. Ground floor is activated with a fitness space, bike shop, additional units on River, and then that commercial area. Parking is solely accessed off the alley. We're not proposing any parking or vehicular access off of Ash, River, or 11th. The upper floors consist of a variety of 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom, and studio units, approximately 127 units total. So this is levels 2 through 4. Pardon, 2 through 5. The 6th floor is very similar. We have a community space on the northwest of the building with a roof deck that will have views to downtown, the river, and the foothills. Here's some preliminary kind of views that we put together to help get an idea of how we've broken up the massing of the building, incorporated high quality materials, and really tried to highlight that ground floor. These are obviously in the works, and we'll continue to develop them as we move forward with design review. And this view is from 11th Street. You can see the Riverline Phase 1 project in the background, just to kind of give some context and scale. That's a 4-story apartment project being built across the alley. And then I have some data in here if we need to dive into any specifics on the units or square footages. Just to summarize, again, asking for a rezone of RO to C5, mainly for height increase and a density increase. We're looking to promote and enhance a walkable mixed income neighborhood, which is highlighted in that Pioneer Neighborhood master plan. We're looking to activate River Street with commercial space and residential amenities. And we're looking to provide transit-oriented housing close to downtown with a walkable community and contribute to the long-term sustainability of the neighborhood. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Okay, next we'll check in to see if we have anyone from the Neighborhood Association, which is the Downtown Boise Neighborhood Association. I don't believe they're with us, but gonna check. No hands up online. So we'll go ahead and then open this up for any questions by the commission to either staff, the applicant, or I guess staff or the applicant.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Gillespie.
Hi, Jesse.
Hello.
How set in stone in the DA is the amount of space devoted to commercial? Is there some flexibility in there for more or less commercial space, depending on the fundamental demand for that space?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, so we are currently talking about some of the details in the DA, including the commercial aspect. I think right now, as written, it had 1,200 square feet was the minimum. I think the applicant was requesting a little bit less than that, but that is something that we can discuss tonight as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Squires.
Jesse, great job on this report. Question I did have, a lot of times when there's rezones attached without any other development application, we attach it, within the development agreement, we tie it to a certain elevation. As I was going through the report, obviously, we didn't have elevations presented to us. We just did tonight. Are you all thinking prior to council that we would tie this to an elevation? Just to make sure that we get the aesthetic that we want for this project?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, that's another thing that we can discuss tonight and make a recommendation on. Like you said, we didn't have elevations prior to this point. I do believe this has to go through design review and some other steps as well. So there's going to be other opportunities to look at this.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Gillespie.
So this is a question for you fellas. So if we did put in a condition that the specific drawings or plans or elevations you presented be incorporated in development agreement, would you be averse to that? That means you would be averse. Can you stand up and tell us why you might be averse?
Happy to. If these documents become part of the development agreement without the context of knowing what design review is going to require and any change associated with that, we would then have to come back to this group for any changes associated with that. In addition to that, we also worked with staff to try and make sure that we had some flexibility with growth of the entire building or reduction of the entire building to meet the intents and wants and needs. So those have already been discussed and built into that development agreement at this point.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, please, Bill.
Would you like this gentleman to give his name and address?
Mr. Pape, would you mind giving us your name and address for the record?
Sorry, Dean Pape again, not a problem. 731 West Windermere, Boise, Idaho.
Dean, while we got you up, so I don't think in the elevation that we saw, there was really any materials called out on that plan. I could be wrong. I didn't see anything there. It was more just an elevation for scale, I think, and maybe color, that sort of thing.
Sure.
So having said all that, we prefer that we not reference that elevation with an additional condition tonight.
Yes, I would prefer that.
Okay. Okay. Just to be clear.
Yeah, no problem. I think we can talk about height and width and those sort of things in terms of context of not being bigger than, if there's concerns about it being larger than or of scale that you want to make sure it's not bigger than.
Mm-hmm.
But if we start talking about the context of it having to look a certain way, my worry would be we may get in a circular situation where you just don't have time for it at this point.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Daly.
a couple questions here if I can. This first one's probably going to be for staff. In the DA section under specific requirements, we talk about the tenant relocation package. And correct me if I'm wrong, but there's tenants in these 4 buildings now. Are any of these units already AMI below 80 AMI as we are aware?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, we don't know the exact rent for these units at this point in time, but the assumption is that they are at or below 100%.
Can you give me a brief sense of what the process in this relocation package? What does it consist of exactly? Timelines? What does it mean?
I think that's a better
You want me to
question.
dive in? Yeah, we're working with the city. We've done this. We actually did it across the alley. There were trailers and other folks living there before we built that building. And really it's early engagement and assistance process. And there's a lot of help and assistance in this community, but it's really connecting those tenants to the right people to work with to make sure that they find a place to go and working with them as early as possible so that it doesn't become I'm sorry, you need to find a home in 30 days. And we were successful across the alley and in this neighborhood at doing that. We intend to engage in the same way. We've already engaged with most of the tenants, if not all of them at this point, to start talking about, this is a year or so out, but let's make sure that when and if you plan on moving, we're there to help you find the right place to move to.
Okay. Would you please pull up an overhead of the project, a map, general map? Different line of questioning if I can. That'll work. Perfect, actually. So you described this project as being walkable.
Yeah.
You agree? Yeah.
I would agree.
Is the Greenbelt one of those walkable places?
Definitely.
And we know that River Street is a collector, correct?
Currently,
The
yes.
nearest marked crosswalk from the 11th Street intersection is about 700, 800 feet to the west and about 900 feet to the other intersection to the east. So my question is, I don't think I missed this, but if I did, please correct me. We're not requiring a marked crosswalk and any kind of a flashing beacon to cross 11th to get towards the Greenbelt, are we?
Just one quick clarification, if I could. You said how far to the west? Because there's one currently within 150 feet of the property.
The one
The Pioneer
that
Pathway?
is
The
Pioneer Pathway is a
Pioneer Pathway.
blinking intersection for pedestrian and for bike crosswalk.
the one that is further, when I measured it the other day, it's the one that is over by Pioneer. So from the 11th Street section, which I believe that's where the entrance of your building is that right? One of your
Currently
main
it's
entrance?
centered, actually.
Centered, okay.
Yeah.
So straight line to the Greenbelt, that out of the way, I believe, again, we can measure this, but I believe maybe from the corner, you're about 400, but the way I measured it was about 700 feet away to that. I think it's a Hawk signal, if I'm not mistaken,
It is,
pedestrian
yeah.
hybrid beacon.
Mhm.
The other way to the east, it's farther.
Do we know what CCDC's plan for 11th Street Bikeway and that intersection crossing will be?
I didn't
'Cause I
see that in
assume
the
that-
application. Maybe staff can answer that question.
Yeah, I actually am not sure. I know that there is kind of future plans as that's a new district that they
Mhm.
plan on
a good
providing
question.
additional crossings at that location, which will be great for this project in the neighborhood.
Yep.
In terms of proximity.
I don't know if you can answer that question, Jesse, or not, but
Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. No, we do not know the exact plans for CCDC's 11th Street, plans for connection there. But no, that was not discussed at this point in time because there are a lot of projects in flux in this area.
Okay. I'll let that be for now. Thank you.
Yeah. Mhm. You know, Mr. Commissioner Mooney's online with us. He's had his hand up and been waiting patiently. So go ahead, John.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Question for staff, Jesse. Piggybacking on Commissioner Danley's questions about pedestrian facilities. I'm confused about Compass's report saying that pedestrian stress is increased by what looks to be a good streetscape and street activation with this project. Can you explain why Compass thinks this is going to be increased pedestrian stress, or is that going to lead what Commissioner Danley was asking?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I'm not exactly sure Compass's reasoning for that, but I guess I would assume that it's because there would be more people using that area for pedestrians, but I don't know their exact formula, no.
Thanks.
Sure thing. Thanks, John. Any other questions, gang? Dean, is the, I believe there's some are the high transmission lines
There are.
along the road there? Are those going to, I'm assuming those are going to remain in place? Is that the plan, or
actually-
have you had that conversation?
Yeah, we've actually had multiple conversations with Idaho Power and engaged them on options. And we'll
Right.
actually look at it. If you looked along river, there's actually transmission lines on both sides. The south side actually has an easement for utilities that's not currently on the north side. So we're in communications with them, CCDC, and the other landowners in the area to try and centralize those as a better plan to help clean up the overhead lines in the area.
Oh, that'd be great. Okay. Okay, one more call for questions. All right, very good. Thanks. We'll go ahead and now open up this item for public testimony. We had one person sign up ahead of time. Looks like Truman Bishop. Yeah, Mr. Bishop, you want to come on up? You have 3 minutes to testify here. If you can start with your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Truman Bishop. I live at 1110 West River. That is the corner of River and 11th, a phenomenal place in the city to live. These folks have a wonderful property. The extra height is going to make for some incredible views. We're talking views that you can have on the local news at the set in the background. It'll be impressive. I've lived here for over a decade. I got to watch the Zion Bank building go up, the Jump building go up. It's been an honor to live there. The biggest change to this neighborhood happened when Ash and River was built by the same developers. That's when parking in this little area of town started to become an issue. Now, part of the deal was they moved the fire lane from one side of Ash to the other side of Ash. And they somehow got the city to pay for painted parking spots in front of the residents. They're for anybody, but they are marked parking places. Now, all the parking places that are not marked every single night are taken. On Lee Street, they're backed up onto Ash Street. And this is before the place across the alley, 4 times larger than River and Ash, is opened. So parking's an issue before the place across the street is being built. And now this place is going to have 8 times the size of that. All that extra parking is going to go across the way to the business park, where the movers and shakers, a lot of the lawyers that work for the city work there, and we'll see how that works out. So that's the biggest issue. Is parking's already an issue. It's just going to become a bigger issue, a bigger issue, a bigger issue. I don't know who Compass even is, but one of the reasons why they might think there's going to be more pedestrian traffic along 11th is the city's multi-million-dollar plan to make 11th, that Boise Rivers to Ridges bike path and pedestrian way. That might be why they consider more pedestrian coming that way. I also am concerned about the bicycle parking, because that is going to be what they're advertising as a freeway for bicyclists from the Greenbelt to the foothills. I mean, it is almost there. They stop about 50 yards short of the actual green belt, where they then direct people to turn onto River Street, then onto that Pioneer Park path. You're familiar with it. The last little thing I want to mention before I go, I don't have my 3-minute timer. I don't know where I'm at. Okay, the last thing I want to say is the unique thing about this neighborhood, or one of the very unique things about this neighborhood, is we share it with 18-wheelers, semi-trucks, convoys. There's that warehouse directly across the street. I don't know if it counts as being on River Street or 11th Street, but I can tell you for a fact, Monday through Friday from 5 a.m. till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 18-wheelers are going up that stretch of road from River Street onto 11th there, where they do that little U-turn. We'll see how that works with that bike path, hopefully not too poorly. Everybody, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop. Anyone else present tonight would like to testify on this item? Podium is free. Okay, we'll check in online. So if anybody online would like to testify, please raise your hand. Okay, very good. At this point, we can have the applicant back up for 5 minutes of rebuttal.
Don't you say my name again?
Please, yeah,
Okay.
just for the folks online so they know who's talking.
Ian McLaughlin, 116 South 6th Street, Boise, Idaho. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I just want to point out that what we are proposing to address the parking concerns is as close as we can get to a 1-to-1 parking ratio. We have approximately 117 parking spots. Sorry, 117 and 127 units. So we're at about 0.9 parking ratio. So we're hoping that will address some of the concerns. While we don't have anything to do with the 11th Street bikeway improvements on this project, we are proposing bicycle parking within the building. So that will hopefully address concerns of bikes being parked throughout the neighborhood. And I believe that's all. Any questions for me?
No more questions at this time.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and bring this item back before the commission to render a decision. Again, this is CAR 22-34, and just a reminder, it's a rezone, so we're recommending to council on this one.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Gillespie.
move we approve CAR 22-34 with the related development agreement and all the terms and conditions in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, great, thank you. I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Gillespie and a second by Commissioner Blanchard. Milt, you want to start with some discussion?
Sure. So my perspective is, this is just the initial rezone. The development agreement does reference these what is it called? These rough plans, and say that the city council can review them. So, and I think it's a good project as proposed in that place. I'm sure we can fine tune the parking and the crosswalks as necessary, but I don't think it's very easy to do that in a rezone. So I'm going to let either the design review folks deal with that, or if it comes back before us as a conditional use permit, say if there's some parking issues related to the code and they need to seek a CUP, we'll have another bite at that apple. And I just think it's a little, I don't know what's going to happen with that streetscape and those crossings, but my gut feeling is the city and CCDC are going to be very attentive to those kinds of issues in this particular area.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks, Milt.
I'll just chime in real quick. Mr. Bishop, thank you for coming back. You were here till the wee hours with us the last time I remember, and we'd already deferred it and you missed it. So yes, so thank you so much for coming back. That neighborhood's seen a lot of changes over the years, and we have one guy that shows up to for some input. So thank you very much for doing that. To the developers, I just want to say thank you for including the tenant assistance package in the development agreement. If I had my way, I would have us doing that more often. And so I appreciate you coming to the table with that and your commitment to the neighborhood, because I know you've done a lot of work over there. So, and as Commissioner Gillespie noted, this is just a simple rezone. So we're not here to debate the finer points of the project. And I think we all agree that we need more housing in that area. And I just thank everybody for their contributions to this tonight.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Any other comments, discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Daly?
just be brief here. Absolutely supportive of the project. I think it's great. My only concern, I think, is going to be addressed by CCDC. That distance is 600 feet, 11th Street to that crossing. That's textbook guidance in terms of the distance between crossings. So I know personally, if that comes back before us, that's definitely something I'm going to be, looking for. But to Commissioner Gillespie's point, CCDC is on their radar. And they're the best in the business, frankly. I think they're the best in the state at doing the types of things that we're talking about. So I have faith that they'll do a bang up job here too. So I will be supportive of the project. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I'll also be supporting the motion. I think it's a great looking project. Elevations look fantastic. I think it's a handsome building. Obviously going to change and get better as things progress, I'm sure. So nice job to the team. And I agree with all the comments stated before me here that, between the development team, CCDC, and City of Boise, that it's going to receive the attention that it needs and deserves. So well done. Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and call the roll here. Again, we have a motion to approve recommend approval of CAR 22-34. Motion was by Commissioner Gillespie with a second by Commissioner Blanchard.
Schaefer,
Aye.
Squires,
Aye.
Blanchard,
Aye.
Gillespie,
Aye.
Ganley,
Aye.
Mooney,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. All right. Thanks, guys. All right. Up next, item number 2. This is CUP 22-59, Erstadt Architects at 114 South 23rd Street. This is a conditional use permit for a parking reduction associated with a new multifamily development on 0.56 acres in a C5DD zone. And again, we're going to hear from Jesse Lyle to start.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, Commissioner Danley.
I will
Sorry.
be recusing myself from this item due to a contractual relationship with SMR Development.
Okay, very good. Let the record show that Commissioner Danley has recused himself from this item. Okay, Jesse, you're up.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. The item before you, CUP 22-59, a conditional use permit for parking reduction associated with the second phase of multifamily development. The subject property is located at 114 North 23rd Street in a C5DD zone on 0.56 acres. The applicant is requesting to reduce the required parking to a ratio of 0.34 spaces per unit. Typically, parking is calculated by bedroom, but with a project with 63 studio, 32 one-bedroom, and 1 two-bedroom units would be required to provide 99 parking spaces for residents and guests with the P3 parking overlay reduction. Up to a 30% parking reduction would be allowed by code for providing affordable housing on a transit line with podium parking, which would bring the required parking spaces down to 70. The applicant is proposing 42 spaces overall based on the unique situation of the tenants for this project and the low rates of vehicle ownership. Phase 1 of this development to the east has been in operation since 2018 with the same parking ratio and no reported parking issues. With the proposed parking reduction, the applicant is providing 114 bike parking spaces on site above what is required by the development code. A recommended condition of approval requires the applicant to provide additional lengths to accommodate for bike carts in 10 of those parking spaces. The property is located near a community and regional activity center. Both the 23rd Street and Fairway Avenue roadways contain bike facilities and are identified on ACHD's Roadways to Bikeways Master Plan. This development is adjacent to a bus stop and it's served by 3 different bus lines, and the project is located in a walkable area near a number of services and amenities. In conclusion, the planning team recommends approval, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. First, we're going to hear from the applicant before we have any questions.
Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, Shellen Rodriguez with SMR Development. My address is 520 West Idaho Street here in Boise. First of all, thank you, Jesse, and the work that you've done. I think the staff report was very thorough, and I'm going to try to not say everything that she just said again. So I'll try to move quickly. But at the end of the day, this is about permanent supportive housing, which I tried to define for you real quick. I'll call it PSH as I talk through it. It pairs housing subsidy with case management and supportive services to help those who are suffering from chronic homelessness. So with that said, it has been proven both by BSU and at a national level to help save community dollars and money that would otherwise be spent in jails, prisons, hospitals, et cetera. So that is what we're talking about here today. New Path is in the picture. It's award-winning both nationally and regionally. And I always say next slide, but here we go. The team, really quick, I think you're familiar with Pacific Companies, who I'm representing as their project manager and owner's rep. They're one of the largest affordable housing developers in the country, and they're based out of Eagle, Idaho since the late 90s. Over 200 affordable housing developments throughout the country. We're partnering with our design firm, Ursid Architecture, obviously a very strong presence here in the Valley. They've worked with Pacific on Adair Manor and the first version of New Path. We're also working with Our Path Home to help folks who are suffering from chronic homelessness get into homes, create stability in their lives so that they can move forward, as well as Terry Riley, which is right around the corner from this site, to provide case management and supportive services. So just to set the stage as to the project. These are just some images of New Path. The development, I think Jesse went through it very, very well. I think in short, what you see here is the gray is what we're proposing today. The area on the right, my right, the white is the existing 42 units. Again, those 42 spaces. In addition to those 42 vehicular parking spaces, we have 113 bike spaces that we're showing, and that does not include short-term bike parking, which would be in the public right-of-way based on the typical furnishings that are allowed in that area. Site plan, you guys saw this, second, third, fourth, fifth floor. I just wanted to point out that we do step back from Fairview, and then on the sixth floor, we step back a little bit more to try to meld with the existing building. And there's some images. This is from the perspective from Fairview. Again, New Path you see on the right is more of the brown at the 4 stories, and you see our project that has the blue accents stepping back. You see the existing upholstery building in the corner there. We're not touching it. We're working around it. And then you see this alley perspective. So at the end of the day, oh, sorry, guys. At the end of the day, we are requesting the parking reduction. Again, it's the 0.34 per unit, which is the same as the existing New Path next door has. This seems like a lot. I get it. I wanted to make sure that you understand we've done our homework on this. We're not pulling this number out of thin air. Currently, there's 42 units adjacent to this site, of which one is a property manager on site. So 41 units are permanent supportive housing. Of those 41 units, 7 folks currently that are living there have cars. I personally, there's a picture there, it's kind of hard to see. I've gone by the site both weekdays, weekends, evenings, during the day to just see what the situation looks like. Never once has the parking been full, the on-site parking been full, and there's always been additional spaces on the streets. This graph to the right, it's a little hard to see, but it's based on a 2020-2021 report that I refer to a lot because there aren't a lot of industry standards around permanent supportive housing and around parking for such. But this is one that is done and it's very thoughtful. And you see the top chart shows as you increase incomes for units, the need for parking also increases. So that very first column there shows one black car just as a representative of you need less parking as your income is decreased, as incomes for residents are decreased. The bottom chart is also just representing the same thing. Essentially, as you go from supportive housing, which we're talking about here, through to senior housing, to workforce, then to multifamily, kind of traditional multifamily housing, your need and reliance that those residents have on personal vehicles increases. So you see supportive housing is primarily focused on transit, bikes, and walkability. I have another slide in an updated presentation that I failed to get to Jesse, but it basically speaks to the different bus routes that go right by the site, the improvements that CCDC, which we've heard a lot about already tonight, has recently made in the area with bike lanes and updated and more amenitized bus stops. And there's over 6 in the area. And the bikeability score of this site, I checked, it's at 93, which is called a biker's paradise, for what that's worth. Neighborhood meeting, I know that Kelly is here. I just want to quickly go through this. We did have our required neighborhood meeting. There were folks there from business community, the neighborhood association, as well as folks from the neighboring New Path One. It was a really great meeting. I would say that overall there was a lot of support for not only the project, but also for the parking reduction. And there was a lot of great comments received. I went through those here, but essentially increasing bike parking as much as we can. I feel like we're doing that. They were very supportive of a lot of the amenities that we're showing on the second floor, increasing universal design throughout the units. Some smaller things like ceiling fans, but also it was just a great opportunity to really hear what the neighborhood was thinking in regards to this development. So I just wanted to point that out. So the slideshow really wants me to end. With that, I will say I'm happy to stand for questions or hear any other comments. And I've got members of the design team here to answer hard questions about that. So I think that's it for me.
Okay. Thanks, Ms. Rodriguez. We'll be with you with questions in just 1 minute. First, we're going to check in, see if we have anyone from the West Downtown Neighborhood Association present.
Yeah, I'm present.
And you're here to represent the West Downtown Neighborhood Association.
Well,
You can go ahead and just pull that mic up and.
okay, yeah. So Kelly Tagg, 1820 West Jefferson Street. I did attend the meeting representing the Neighborhood Association along with another board member, and we did discuss it as a board. Quite frankly, there hasn't been a lot of interest or concern from the neighbors. So I'm not here to make a formal statement in regards to the Neighborhood Association, just because the lack of interest, we just didn't feel like it was something that would be necessary.
Okay.
Great.
All right. Very good. Thank you. Yeah. You're still welcome to testify on your own behalf here in a few minutes if you'd like. Yeah. Okay. Great. All right. We'll go ahead then and open this up for any questions by the commission.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Gillespie.
So I understand that the focus of the CUP, or at least the discussion, has been on the parking issue. Am I correct in assuming, though, that in fact this is the CUP for the whole shooting match, and that we should therefore be mindful of the Lusk doctrine, which says we're looking at the whole CUP, not just the parking reduction? Is that correct, or where are we?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, so this type of development is allowed by right in this area, in this zone. So we are just looking at the parking reduction today.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Milt.
Lawyer says yeah.
Thank you, James. Commissioner Mooney.
Mr. Chair, yeah, I've got a question about the ACHD staff report. They reference the 30th Street area master plan and that North Alley being possibly a future local street. Can the staff talk to that? Is that, because it doesn't seem to be, that's part of this project.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, so that was something that is in that plan. There are some streets that have been identified as potential local streets. With the development of New Path One, that was kind of taken into consideration that wouldn't be the case for this specific alley, as that alley and that side has already developed as an alley with a 20-foot wide section. So.
Okay, thanks, Jesse. Mr. Chair, I got one last question. Thanks to the applicant for that parking reduction slide. That helped me feel a little bit better about the request, because it seemed to me like we were taking selective consideration on best practices. I guess I'm still kind of smarting from Interfaith Sanctuary, where the neighborhood had lots of best practices proposed, and we disregarded those because of the applicant and the city's position on interfaith. And in this one, it's we're disregarding the parking code based on best practices, which the way I've been kind of schooled here is that we have to be careful about best practices when the code's clear. So that slide helped me. I guess I could be convinced that that makes sense.
Okay, thanks, John. So no question then, John, just.
Well, I guess there's a question in there, in that I guess the question is, this is clear violation of the code. Is that correct, staff?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, so the code does allow for parking reductions. That's what this conditional use is for parking reduction further than what the code typically allows.
Mr. Chair.
Mill, please.
So John, I think the point is that if we want to pick a number that doesn't fit the code, the applicant has to do a CUP, which they're doing, and then we apply the CUP criteria to that decision. And that's what allows us to step down from the number in the code if it meets those CUP criteria.
Great. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Milt.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Milt. Any other questions? Good. Okay. All right. We'll go ahead then and open up public testimony on this item. I don't have a sign up for this item, or it looks like no one signed up for this item. If you're here and like to testify, the podium is free. Come on up. You'll have 3 minutes. Please start with your name and address.
Okay, Kelly Tagg, 1820 West Jefferson Street, and I will be brief. I just, the experience that we've had with the current location with the New Path Community House, we have just anecdotally, we observed a reduction of the number of homeless people in our neighborhood, and we're kind of a pathway from one side of town to another. So we have regular foot traffic and that sort of thing. Prior to the construction of this project, the current Pathways House, we had a neighborhood meeting because of a concern of homeless people sleeping in Fairview Park. And there was a lot of anxiety expressed at that meeting of, this list of horribles of things that would happen if the New Path Community House was built. We didn't experience any of that. In fact, if people have a place to go to and sleep at night, they're not going to do it in the park. And then as far as the parking issue itself, I'll just reiterate what Shellen had expressed. I drive by that facility nearly every day. I've never seen a problem with overflow parking, anything in the street, or, that's just hasn't been an issue. And when I talked about the board and the neighborhood association, the lack of interest is really because nobody's concerned. Nobody's worried about it. We advertised it like we would any other project in the neighborhood. We received no comments, and it's because there's no anxiety. And so, we just didn't want to, I just didn't want to speak in support or denial, for the neighborhood association, because everybody was just, it wasn't something that they were really worried about. So, personally, the experience that we've had with the current facility has been great. And I personally support the new expansion of the Pathways House. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else would like to testify? Okay, we'll do a quick check-in online. If you're online and want to testify, please raise your hand. Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public testimony. The applicant now has a few minutes for rebuttal. You can certainly yield that time if you would like. Okay, let the record show the applicant has yielded her rebuttal time. So we'll go ahead then and bring us back before the commission to render a decision. Again, this is CUP 22-59.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Squires.
I make a motion to approve CUP 22-059 with all the terms and conditions as outlined in the staff report.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, great. Thank you. Blanchard. All right. All right. Thanks, gang. We've got a motion to approve by Commissioner Squires and a second by Commissioner Blanchard. Actually, start with some discussion.
Absolutely. When I was reading this over the weekend, the thing that just kept popping to my mind was the phrase no brainer, no brainer, no brainer. This is a facility that does good work in our community, as we've just heard from the one neighbor who has testified. We have heard also that there has not been a parking issue, and there's definitely substantive research to be able to support that. It's on a transit line. It has it's very bikeable. It's walkable. It is near to activity centers. It just makes all the sense in the world. And I think we should be supporting projects exactly like this in our community. And that's for that reason, I will be supporting my motion.
Exactly.
Me too.
I'm just going to pile on really quickly here too. I'm a trained social scientist, and one of the things Ms. Rodriguez says is that the research proves these things to be true. And we no. And no, I'm not throwing you under the bus here. We never use that word prove. But tonight I'm going to let you get away with it, because as Commissioner Squires stated, this is such a no-brainer. Danley had his praise the Lord moment with an ACHD report we had a couple of weeks ago. And this is mine tonight. It's like, if we could do permanent supportive housing all over the city, we should do it as fast and as hard as we possibly can, because it is absolutely the solution to chronic homelessness. So yeah, if I could vote twice on this, I certainly would. Thank you guys so much. You're in that unenviable position of having to go out there and educate people as to what permanent supportive housing can achieve. I had some experience working in these projects in Los Angeles. We approved some with no parking at all. And it's worked fantastically. And thank you so much for showing up. This has been, again, another neighborhood seeing substantial change. And we have one neighbor show up, just like we just did on the River Street. But absolutely, I think both of these projects that we've seen so far tonight are absolutely critical pieces about how we move forward in this community and provide housing to the most vulnerable people here. So thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thank you, Chris. I see Commissioner Mooney has his hand up. I'm going to go to John.
Mr. Chair, thanks. Yeah, thanks again to the applicant and for that slide, help me educate on parking. And also, I wish we had more of our neighbors that would listen into the West Downtown's comments about list of horribles, because we listen to that all the time, and clearly this doesn't become a problem. So kudos on New Path, and I'll be supportive.
Okay, thanks, John. Milt, any thoughts? Okay. Yeah, fully support. Great job, team. Best of luck getting the project constructed and moving forward. Yeah. Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and call the roll. Again, we have a motion to approve CUP 22-59. A motion by Commissioner Squires with a second by Commissioner Blanchard. Will clerk please call the roll?
Schaefer,
Aye.
Squires. Aye. Blanchard,
Aye.
Gillespie,
Aye.
Mooney,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Okay, great. Thank you all. How's the committee? Go ahead and take a 5-minute break. We'll be right back at 10 after 7. That's okay. All right, we'll move on next to item number 3. This is CAR 22-11, PUD 22-28, and SUB 22-35. The address is 6776 East Warm Springs Avenue. All of these items were deferred from our meeting on December 12th. This is an annexation of approximately 3.2 acres to R2DDA, a conditional use permit for a planned residential development comprised of 33 attached single-family townhomes on 3.2 acres, and then the associated preliminary plat comprised of 33 buildable and 3 common lots on said 3.2 acres. First, we're going to hear from staff, Mr. David Mosier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
The applicant requests an annexation of 3.2 acres.
Mr. Chair.
R2D.
Oh, I'm sorry. David, hang on one second. Commissioner Mooney?
I need to be recused. Thanks for the record.
Yep, very good. Let the record show that Commissioner Mooney has recused himself from this item. Thanks, John. Thanks, David.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mooney might want to just say a brief few words on the record as to why he's recusing himself.
John, would you like to expand on that a little bit, please?
Sure, Mr. Chair. Yeah, as the president of the Barber Valley Neighborhood Association, I've been involved with the communications with the applicant as well as the neighborhood association and Mr. Veazey's testimony tonight.
Great. Thank you, John. Okay, David, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. The applicant is requesting to annex 3.2 acre site with an R2D DA zone located at 6776 East Warm Springs Avenue and a conditional use permit for a planned unit development containing 33 attached townhomes. Also included is a preliminary plat for residential subdivision comprised of 33 buildable lots and 3 common lots. And as you can see from the aerial photograph, the surrounding area is comprised of residential neighborhoods containing detached single-family homes to the north, south, and east. Single-family residential houses are adjacent to the west across Warm Springs Avenue, which is also zoned R2. A large wildlife corridor abuts the property to the north, which connects the undeveloped foothills to the east with the Boise River. For a quick overview, the commission may recognize this application since it was heard before the Planning and Zoning Commission back on August 1st, 2022. And the applicant had the applicant had made substantial changes to address the commission's concerns at that time to the project. In summary, as seen on this slide, the annexation is consistent and compatible with the development code. The proposed R2 zone is supported by the commercial land use designation of the comprehensive plan. And this is further detailed, the compliance is further detailed within the project report. And as you can see from the site plan, the development consists of 33 attached 2- and 3-story townhomes. In summary, the substantial changes proposed by the applicant include reducing the density to 33 units for a project density of 10.3 units per acre, providing direct public street connection to Warm Springs with this public street connection here, which is new, increasing the overall open space of the area provided with the development. This is a new open common lot with, I think, playground equipment, and then they've got the additional open space common lots here and across the north property line. And they're proposing to enhance the street improvements along Warm Springs Avenue. The site design includes a public street which loops through the subject property and provides direct street connection to Warm Springs Avenue. The right-of-way width for the public street is proposed at 27-foot street section, which allows for parking along one side. And the applicant proposes a 5-foot wide detached sidewalk along Witten, Neris, and Bryan Avenue. And the planning team also recommends specific street improvements along Warm Springs Avenue itself. I would also note that each of the townhomes provide a 2-car garage. The street improvements that are being proposed along Warm Springs should include the following elements: curb, gutter, and drainage openings or ribbon curb, a larger landscape buffer, a 10-foot wide pathway for biking and walking, and of course, the storm drain needs to be accommodated within this. In addition, a recommended condition of approval requires the applicant work with the city of Boise and ACHD on these street improvements along Warm Springs Avenue within the right-of-way prior to final plat. Also, the street selection will need to be coordinated with Idaho Power due to the existence of power lines along the street frontage. Neighbors and the Barber Valley Neighborhood Association did express concerns back in August with the project in terms of access to Warm Springs, compatibility, and traffic. These concerns have been addressed with the proposed changes. In particular, 2 of the concerns have been addressed with the public road connection to Warm Springs Avenue itself. So in conclusion, the planning team recommends approval of the annexation PUD and the subdivision, and the project complies with all the required findings. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, David. Next, we'll hear from the applicant. Nicolette, thank you for your patience with the deferral from the last meeting and then the break time tonight and everything else. So
No worries. Thanks for having us.
mhm.
Chair, Council, Commissioners, Nicolette Womack, Kimley Horn, 1100 West Idaho Street, Boise, Idaho, 83702. We're here before you tonight, following up with the Woven subdivision. Our apologies. We are scheduling 2 hearings tonight. So we are half online and half in person. Mark Russell, the developer, is online with us. And then Abby Hahn, our civil engineer, is also online. Our team includes Chris Rose, landscape architect, Kelly Childs, and civil engineer, and Ian is with Pivot North Architecture, also in person tonight. So again, before you tonight is annexation rezone development agreement that annexes the project, the site into the city, assigns zoning, and applies binding conditions. The planned unit development allows for attached units and reduced lot sizes. The preliminary plat will plat the parcels for individual sale. So just a reminder on the timeline, we started this project back in February of last year with a pre-application meeting. We held our neighborhood meeting in April. And after which we submitted our application. We had our first hearing with you all back in August. We heard your feedback and we came back with a new plan for your reconsideration approval in September. About that time in November, ACHD reclassified Warm Springs, which allowed us to give that new access onto Warm Springs. So we've again changed the plans and we're back for a hearing tonight. So again, you're familiar with this project. It's east of Harris Ranch. And then shown here is the zoning map, which is R2D, which allows for 12.5 dwelling units per acre. And then shown here are the existing subdivisions on all sides. And so again, on this project, we have a lot of opportunities and a lot of constraints. We're completing the road network with changing policies and requirements. We're completing the pedestrian network. We are honoring the WUI setbacks on the north. We're fronting the homes on Warm Springs, and we are including honoring the perimeter setbacks with the adjacent subdivisions. So original submittal is shown here. This is what you all looked at previously. We were at 39 single family homes broken up in a variety of ways. We revised that project and are here tonight with 33 single family homes. That's 10.3 dwelling units per acre underneath the 12.5 per the zone. That includes 7 2-plex buildings, 3 5-plex buildings, and 2 5-plex buildings. Good news for everyone, we have Warm Springs access now, so that reduces the pressure on Bryan Ave to the existing neighborhood. Pedestrian connectivity has also, it's remained the same since you last saw it. It continues to be an asset for the community. We've expanded the Warm Springs Ave detached sidewalk, and we are creating our section of the Homestead Trail. We'll continue to work with the subdivision to the east where the trail actually kind of dies off before it hits our site. So. And then shown here are the regional connectivity plans for the area. ACHD's 5-year work plan includes an RRFB at Skybar and then another one at Maynard Ave. Open space and amenities. So we provide, City of Boise doesn't have an exact open space requirements, but we would greatly exceed most of the standard ones in the valley. Landscaping, we are providing and keeping a combination of 182 caliber inches. We're providing a play area and drought tolerant landscaping. Parking came up at the last hearing, so we're required to provide 66 spaces. That's 2 per dwelling unit. If you count the garage spaces, which are those 66, the driveway spaces, which are 34, and the on-street parking spaces, which is another 20, we're at 120 spaces, which is 3.6 per dwelling unit. So I feel very comfortable that we are meeting and far exceeding the parking requirements. For the building layout and height, shown here is a color-coded example of how we step down from 3-story adjacent Warm Springs Ave, which is similar to the project across Warm Springs Ave, which also has 3-story units. And then we step down to 2-story units adjacent the existing subdivisions. Just in case you're curious, we wanted to give you a sense of scale and how far away we are from everyone. So we do have that 15-foot setback on the east and south side, but we greatly exceed that in terms of the way things are existing built. There is protected space through the DA of the subdivision to the north. There's kind of a gulch in that area. So we are over 184 spaces from those 3-story units to the north. Shown here are the renderings from Pivot North. These are the duplex units, which are consistent with several of the standards of the duplex ordinance. Then these are the 3-plex units. You'll also notice that the 5-plex units are very similar. They just have more buildings, more units per building. They also include a variety of window fenestration, balconies, and respectful locations to the neighbors, and that attached garage on the first floor. And that will be going to design review. So since we last met with you all, we have added that direct access to Warm Springs Ave, reducing demand on Bryan Ave. We have those 20-foot deep driveway aprons where driveway aprons are provided for guest parking that doesn't block sidewalks. We provide a continuous network of detached sidewalks. We have a further reduction in unit count to 33 units, increased setbacks, open space, amenities, landscaping, and overall there's a reduction in hardscaping materials. There is a condition within the staff report. We wrote it here. I don't know if it's maybe changed minorly in the latest draft. We will continue to work with all these agencies and utility companies involved, but there is still much to coordinate in terms of the curbing and the landscaping treatment along those few feet of Warm Springs. So we'll continue to work with everyone, and we feel comfortable with the condition as they wrote it. We're requesting your approval of the PUD, recommendation of approval, annexation, rezone, and preliminary plat. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Nicolette. Okay, now we'll check in, see if we have anyone from the Barber Valley Neighborhood Association.
Happy New Year's. Happy New Year, Commissioners. It's good to see you again. My name is Gary Veazey. I'm the Secretary of BVNA and I reside at 4150 Macbeth Avenue. The theme of my comments tonight can be characterized as all is well that hopefully ends well. While my comments are related to Woven, they are not isolated to just this project or just those in Boise, but to process and interagency collaboration and projects across all of Ada County. BVNA first discussed this project with the applicant 13 months ago, when he expressed a willingness to address our concerns, which were primarily focused on access and traffic calming through streetscape improvements. He proceeded to the city pre-app meeting and discussions with ACHD staff to address these matters. Leading up to the first P&Z hearing, city staff referred all street-related matters to ACHD, in theory, to be worked out. After ACHD staff told the applicant in no uncertain terms that they could not have direct access to Warm Springs or provide traffic calming because Warm Springs was an arterial, the applicant submitted an application that did not address BVNA's comp plan supported vision. To be clear, we don't blame the applicant. Time is money, and he saw ACHD's position as final. At that point, communication between BVNA and the applicant unfortunately ceased, and we were no longer working together. After reviewing the ACHD staff report, BVNA contacted the ACHD president and commissioners in writing to request a hearing to address our concerns, but we were rebuffed by the then president and director. Our only option was to communicate our concerns to the city's planning team. The ACHD Commission had recently stated publicly that the public just needs to contact the commission, but that clearly did not work. After that dead end, the project proceeded to your commission for action on August 1st. As you may recall, BVNA testified about access, street typology, and streetscape design concerns that your commission chose not to address, but also sidewalk type, and that the site was not of adequate size to accommodate the intended use. You shared our concerns and denied the project as the required findings could not be made. The focus of this account is the unproductive process and time spent by the developer, consultants, city staff members, and Z commissioners such as yourselves and volunteer directors on BV&A, preparing for first denying, then reconsidering the project at 2 meetings, and now this additional hearing tonight. Instead, productive dialogue between the city and ACHD staffs should have occurred, potentially eliminating much of the delay and the cost to the developer and heavy planning department workload. We do acknowledge that city staff is sometimes unfortunately treated no differently than the general public by ACHD. I offer this context not as criticism, but rather a snapshot of what we encountered for much of this last year as it was status quo. Simultaneously, BV&A was deeply entrenched in pursuing a successful reclassification campaign for Warm Springs. During the master street map process, it became abundantly clear that at least 3 ACHD commissioners clearly wanted change. Commissioners Hanson and Pickering, and to an extent Goldthorpe, attacked the legacy process and made it clear that ACHD should be considering the city's vision and not be unilaterally driving it. BV&A rigorously lobbied for a Warm Springs reclassification to a collector status, which would allow for calming and a more neighborhood-friendly streetscape, which would slow speeds. As ACHD's position on roles became more clear, it is our impression that the city staff became more empowered. In the case of Warm Springs and Woven, your staff drove the streetscape solution. The city and BV&A's vision was more authoritatively being mandated by staff and pursued without reservation as a result of the reclassification. We feel this is the city's right and responsibility under the Local Land Use Planning Act, and we are hopeful that a precedent has now been established to ensure that ACHD does not override the land use agency's vision and the responsibilities across the county. We offer kudos and thanks to your staff for their efforts. As we approach this hearing, it was no longer, we don't know, or we'll see what ACHD wants, but rather, these are the conditions of approval supporting our vision. We would like to thank Tim, Crystal, and David in planning, Karen in transportation, and Bree in the mayor's office for their pursuit of our mutual vision. We are hopeful that the city as a whole, including the aforementioned stakeholders, your commission, and city council, continue to push for the right solution when dealing with ACHD on development applications. As part of the zoning code rewrite, we are hopeful that staff incorporates a code mechanism for staff to identify any vision or policy misalignments as a part of a development application, and more importantly, that there is a priority to solve these prior to a hearing. We too desire the, quote, epic ACHD staff report that Commissioner Danley referred to, 2 references tonight, referred to on the Armory project during the December 12th meeting for all projects. I am neither pro or anti-developer, but we have to work together. I believe that the lessons learned from this project should be applied to all projects, and hope process improvements are now in place. The legacy ACHD approach must be rejected across the entire county, and we have already expressed this to Barber Valley's ACHD commissioner. To that end, and with regard to the application before you, BV&A supports the staff recommendation. A few of the applicant's drawings need to be revised to graphically align with the conditions of approval, such as the landscape and site plan showing the 10-foot multi-use path and frontage improvements. While not currently depicted on the landscape plan, we do expect a double row of staggered street trees wherever possible after coordinating utility locations as shown on page 5, figure 1 of the staff report. We agree with condition 5 that states that ACHD and the city must approve the improvements in the right-of-way prior to signing the final plat. We anticipate the neighborhood association being a part of that discussion prior to the map hearing although not expressly stated in the condition. However, it goes on to state improvements should be included. This seems a bit open-ended. BV&A feels the developer shall include them, and it is our expectation that all of these features are constructed as a part of the project unless it is physically impossible to do so. We expect a finished pavement edge as described, which, as we understand it, will calm traffic, not surface drainage into a borrow ditch. When the staff report, including the aforementioned figure 1, conditions of approval and drawings are considered in their entirety, they represent a project BV&A supports. We strongly believe the current proposal better interfaces with the neighborhood and reduces prior impacts on the adjacent East Valley subdivision. Most importantly, we are extremely excited that it establishes a go-forward design template for future improvements of the Warm Springs corridor, either by a developer or through ACHD capital improvement projects. We acknowledge this template is not going to change the nature of Warm Springs immediately, but it will inform the right solution over time. We urge you to approve the PUD and move the rezoning, annexation, and subdivision applications to council with a recommendation for approval as recommended by your staff. As I mentioned earlier, we remain hopeful that all is well, that ends well. Thank you for your consideration of our position on this item and your continued contribution of time, knowledge, and volunteer service to our neighborhood and others across the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Veazey. Okay, we'll go ahead and open up this for questions by the commission. Okay, looks pretty quiet up here. We're all good. Okay. All right, we'll call it then. Go ahead and open this up for public testimony. Anybody here to testify on this item tonight? No one in person. I have one hand up online. Kirk Hall.
Yes, this is Kirk Hall, 346 West Reese. This isn't so much about the project, but a recommendation to the builders. If they haven't done it already, they should see if they can put in an additional 240 outlet in each garage. That would make it attractive to someone who has an electrical vehicle or is considering purchasing one. And it would be much less expensive than them having to retrofit. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hall. I think that might do it for public testimony. We'll go ahead and invite the applicant back up for, I would hope, a quick rebuttal.
Chair, Commissioners, Nicolette Womack of Gimli Horn. We are grateful for all the neighborhood involvement on this. We respect all the efforts BV&A has gone to on behalf of the neighborhood. Similar to the conversation we had at the last hearing, we think it's important that longer term issues through multiple agencies are not the burden of any one project or developer to fix. We understand there's a lot in flux and are happy to hear that everything's moving forward, but need to be cognizant of that evolving relationship. With the existing language as written, that allows us the flexibility to continue working on those finer details. Part of those finer details is that the street section shown in your packet is not an ACHD approved street section. And so we will need to work with them to find one that meets their policies. And from our understanding, the agreement between the city of Boise and ACHD is that they're the technical expert. And so we need to find something that complies with a policy that they can approve. So we'll keep working with them. They weren't able to comment through the holidays or prior to the last hearing. We also just want to state that we could have kept going from the last hearing and continued on to city council with the recommendation of denial, but we value everyone's opinion in this room. And we thought that we could bring another foot forward with another set of plans. And so I think we've accomplished that here tonight, and we'll stand if there's any more questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Nicolette. All right, we'll bring it back before the commission to render a decision. Just a reminder that we're recommending on the annexation, that's CAR 22-11, and on the preliminary plat, that's SUB 22-35. And then we're final on the CUP, PUD, which is 22-28.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Danley.
I will make a motion that we recommend approval of item number 3, specifically CAR 22-11, the annexation request, and SUP 22-35, the preliminary plat request, and recommend that we approve PUD 22-28 with all of the terms and conditions in their staff report.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Squires. Okay, we've got recommendations to approve and to approve by Commissioner Danley and second by Commissioner Squires. Chris, you want to start us with some discussion?
Be pretty brief. I guess I just appreciate the applicant's willingness and ability to navigate this particular situation. It happens, we all know, and appreciate, the time and effort that was put in, because you're right, could have kept pursuing the denial, but I think ultimately did the right thing to the neighborhood association. I'll make it even briefer. Amen. How about that? One quick thing, real little, but to Nicolette, I just wanted to say on your PowerPoint, you included a chart on parking, specifically that mentioned the driveway spots and on-street parking as counting. Yes, it does. And I appreciate you putting that in there, because I think so often we just get locked into nothing but garages when there's more to parking than that. So I just wanted to commend you on that. So anyway, for all of those reasons, I'll be supporting the motion.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Squires?
I just want to thank the developer and Nicolette for listening to us. I think, some of us felt that the plan was almost there the last go round. It was just a little too much on too little. So thank you for listening. Thanks for coming back. I think this is going to be a far superior project, and I think it's going to be a great benefit to the city of Boise.
Mr. Chair, real quick.
Mr. Blanchard.
Nicolette, thank you for fronting the houses on Warm Springs. I appreciate that. Otherwise, I probably would have had a meltdown.
Yep, I'll be supporting the motions as well. Just a quick note, thanks to everybody on your team and to you, Nicolette, and to staff for working through the process here. Mr. VC, we agree with your comments and your thoughts. Also, thank you for your patience and your efforts on this one. I've said this before on the record. Sometimes that's why we're here, right? It takes time, but we're here to vet the issues, hopefully make things better as projects progress. But your points are certainly valid that we could all do a better job being more efficient in that process. So appreciate your time and your efforts here tonight and throughout the years. All right, we'll go ahead and call the roll here. Again, we're recommending approval of CAR 22-11 and SUB 22-35 and approving PUD 22-28 with all the terms and conditions of the staff report. The motion was by Commissioner Danley with a second by Commissioner Squires. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Schaefer,
Aye.
Squires,
Aye.
Blanchard,
Aye.
Gillespie,
Aye.
Danley,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Okay, thanks. All right, we'll move on. Up next is item number 4, PUD 22-69, Rodney Evans and Partners. Address is 911 North Shamrock Street. This is a modification to a conditional use permit for a residential plan development comprised of 24 single-family dwellings on 3.09 acres in an R1C zone. We're going to hear from staff first. Mr. David Mosier.
Thank you, Commissioner or Chairman, Commissioners. The applicant is requesting a modification to a conditional use permit for a residential plan development comprised of 24 single-family dwellings on approximately 3 acres in an R1C zone. And as you can see from the aerial photograph, the property is located on the west side of Shamrock and surrounded by a residential neighborhood, which includes the future planned subdivision or potential future subdivision adjacent to the south. And I believe there's also a potential public park there too. This slide shows the site layout with respect to the surrounding neighborhood, which was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission back on July 19th of 2021. And it includes reduced lot sizes and reduced interior setbacks. This approval is also required, this approval also required the houses along Mesquite to use shared driveways and that detached sidewalks and a landscape buffer be installed along Shamrock. In summary, the applicant is requesting to modify the original PUD approval to remove condition of approval number 3, which required the detached sidewalks, and to remove condition of approval number 4, which required the use of the shared driveways along Mesquite Street. First, the applicants request to remove the condition of approval number 3, since they have already installed the attached sidewalks along Shamrock. According to the applicant, the attached sidewalks were installed in response to ACHD requests for wider street section and also to accommodate the location of infrastructure, irrigation infrastructure. The applicant is requesting the conditional use or the condition to be removed due to site constraints and the cost associated with replacing the existing sidewalks and utilities. However, the planning team recommends denial of the requested modification since it does not comply with the required findings as per the development code. Attached sidewalks are not compatible with the adjacent neighborhood, which includes future subdivision, Abracadabra 2, adjacent to the south, which will include the installation of detached sidewalks and landscape buffer along Shamrock. Also, Shamrock Street is currently a pedestrian and bike connection to Emerald and 5 Mile Road to the south and east, which anticipates enhanced pedestrian and bike improvements along the street. The figure here generally shows a rough comparison between the attached and detached sidewalk designs. Also, the applicant is requesting to remove condition of approval number 4, since the utilities for each buildable lot have already been installed and will conflict with the required shared driveway location. The planning team recommends approval since this modification complies with all the required findings of the development code. The intent of the shared driveways was to improve the street frontage along Mesquite by reducing the number of curb cuts and preserving the availability of on-street parking. The proposed modification to the driveway location protects the on-street parking along Mesquite Street. The driveway locations are paired next to each other and are in a similar location as the original shared driveways from the original project. As such, it is compatible and will not adversely impact the surrounding neighborhoods. This figure here shows on the slide shows the driveway locations along the Mesquite Street as proposed now. In conclusion, the planning team recommends denial of the modification of conditional approval number 3 and approval to modify the approval to modify condition number 4. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Okay, next we'll hear from the applicant. Ben, you're not last tonight.
Yeah,
You're always last. You're not last tonight.
Don't speak so soon.
yeah. Ben Semple, Rodney Evans and Partners, 1450 West Bannock Street, Boise, Idaho, 83702. Yeah, I want to thank David for his staff report and his review of this modification request. Unfortunately, we're here for similar reasons that the last applicant or the last project heard was, with some differentiation between the condition from the city and then what we got as a condition from ACHD, as well as direction in the field during construction. So the condition of approval that we were given for the original application of this from ACHD was that, and I screenshot that here, this is just kind of showing you the location of the subdivision again. It indicates that there's some constraints with the east side of Shamrock being an open, untiled canal, that there's very little usable right-of-way there east of the gravel shoulder. They also reviewed the entirety of Shamrock Street from the north boundary of this project to Fairview. Everything has attached 5-foot sidewalk, including the most recent developed Lucky Lane subdivision, also called Stevens subdivision, that had a similar condition as ours did, but mentioned either 7-foot attached or 5-foot detached sidewalk. What was installed is 5-foot attached. ACHD in the field, they came out, sorry, next slide maybe is, you can see. So the on-site recommendations, this is straight from our staff report for the Abracadabra #1 subdivision. Part of ACHD's action on Lucky Lane subdivision located directly north of the site was that it should be improved with 21 feet of pavement, sharrows, curb gutter, and 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk with a 7-foot wide gravel shoulder. So they go on to mention in the highlighted parts here that that applicant was not required to fully improve to 36-foot wide because of the open ditch and the lack of improvable right-of-way. So they did recommend that the developer improve Shamrock with the 21 feet of pavement, sharrows, curb gutter, and 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk to match the improvements consistent with that adjacent to the north, which was 5-foot attached sidewalk as per their approval. So that is how things, and then additionally, Mike Alexander, during a site visit, when they looked at the plans, they realized that the street section proposed originally was 2 feet too far east with the curb line. So they pushed the curb line of the west side of Shamrock 2 feet west. So that in combination with a gravity irrigation delivery line, joint trench utilities that had already been installed prior to the sidewalk, that made the detached sidewalk and the curb and everything else create a really massive conflict with that, what was installed, as well as Mike Alexander in the field from ACHD said Shamrock should not be considered as a collector street. This is a local roadway. You should match your existing improvements to the north, which was, again, 5-foot attached sidewalk, curb gutter. We understand that there's some pretty major conflicts. If you can kind of roll through the next slide. Oh, can I do that too? Sorry. I haven't used this thing before. So I'm just going to show you, here's what's installed with Abracadabra number 1 from the southern boundary to the entry. These lots are ready to be built on. The last thing that we have to do is get the final plat signed to get building permits for 24 single family homes here. We can't get that signed until we go through this modification. As you can see, Idaho Power has their transformer installed. The cluster mailboxes are installed out here. All the gravity irrigation improvements are installed. So we're going to walk through Shamrock between this site and Fairview Avenue. It's 5-foot attached. This is all street view. That's not as ideal as it could be there, obviously. There's some that's attached, or I guess there's no curb and gutter there, but you can see the way they've made that turn with their radius that they intend to attach curb to the face of that sidewalk. Some of it's rolled curb. There are approximately 5 homes or duplexes that have immediate access to Shamrock. Other than that, everything else is accessed off of a separate public street, independent of Shamrock. And this is getting down closer to the new development. You can see 5-foot attached sidewalk built. They do have their plat signed and are currently building homes. And this is immediately adjacent to us where you see a fence right at the back of the sidewalk of the 5-foot attached, and then the continuation of that. Due to these conditions, I also wanted to show kind of another graphic that shows initially when we got the condition of approval, we looked at doing detached sidewalk. So we created the landscape plan on the left with an 8-foot planter strip, the 2 required street trees along the front, 5-foot detached sidewalk, and a 7-foot landscape buffer from the back of the walk to the setback line to the home at the corner there. Attaching the sidewalk, while it does eliminate the 8-foot planter strip, provides us with a 15 and just over 6-inch foot wide landscape buffer from the back of walk to that same setback line, which substantially increases the ability to put larger trees in there. We've also included 4 along the frontage there, as well as an additional, we're trying to save an additional tree that was shown in some of those pictures and talking with parks that may or may not survive. So this would help us mitigate. We've added some additional landscaping interior to the development as well. But this buffer here on the right side with the monument signage that the developer has installed, we feel like this creates a very attractive street frontage. Regarding pedestrian comfort and bike comfort, as you saw in the staff report and as are painted on Shamrock right now, this has sharrows. So this section of roadway, which dead ends on the southern end. It's bollarded with a regional pathway connection between the south end of Shamrock and the west end of Emerald. I'm going to go back to the overhead view just to, let's see. Is the red button oh, there it is. So this is the new development. This is the adjacent development. There's going to be 16 single family homes, a 1 acre park. There are bollards right here right now. That when that road section gets extended, there will be bollards installed here at the very south end of that. There's also a regional pathway that extends westward along the southern boundary of that park. So we feel like that section of Shamrock, you can see between, I think it's Silverview up here, down to the entrance into Abracadabra number 1. Again, there's about 5 homes that take direct access to Shamrock. The rest of them come in off of Nicole and access interior. This development also connects to Nicole, which allows traffic to head north to get back out to Shamrock or head over here to head north to Fairview Avenue up to the north. So again, there's attached sidewalk all the way down the west side of Shamrock here. In looking at the staff reports for both of these projects, the first for Abracadabra number 1, ACHD indicated that the 24 single family homes would generate 84 vehicle trips at the peak PM hour. In the number 2 staff report, they changed their designation of Shamrock to a local and said, we don't review traffic impacts when it's associated with a local road. We're just as frustrated as you are. I've seen a lot of shaking heads and stuff. I totally get it. Ultimately, we feel like leaving the attached sidewalks with the sharrows that are in the roadway and enhancing that landscape buffer provides for the intent of that condition. It meets what ACHD asks us to do. It gets 24 homes to the market a whole lot faster than tearing this out, relocating joint trench and gravity irrigation and the sidewalk. And with that, I would stand for questions.
Okay, thanks, Ben. First, we'll check in, see if we have anyone from the neighborhood association with us. And I don't think we do. That's the, where are we? West Boise, right? Neighborhood association. No one in person and no hands up online. So we'll go ahead and open this up for questions.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Gillespie.
a question for the applicant. Mr. Semple, when did you put in the attached sidewalk, the mailboxes, and all of the utilities and other accoutrements?
After we received construction document approval from ACHD and
What
City of Boise.
date was that?
I'll have to ask the developer just 1 second, please.
Was it August? Was it September? Was it? Oh,
It's back in the summer.
but we don't know when.
Was
it before or after the letter you received from Mr. Moser dated July 22nd?
It was before that.
So you decided to, Mr. Chairman,
please.
So you decided to do the sidewalks and everything before you had any indication from the city what the city wanted?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Gillespie.
Yes.
The developer did install the improvements after they received ACHD approval of the project. We had submitted documents showing detached sidewalk on Shamrock to the city after the public hearing approving the PUD and the pre-plat. When those construction,
Ben, it's a simple question. You poured the concrete before July 22nd.
According to the
Yes
developer,
or no?
yes. He's looking.
Okay, thank you.
I personally didn't pour anything.
The
I understand the
applicant,
question.
the concrete was poured by a party.
Correct.
Before or after the letter dated July 22nd, 2021?
22.
The date of the letter
2021 was the approval.
letter to inform you is July 21st, 2021.
So the sidewalks were installed after that. I'm sorry, Mr. Commissioner. or Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Gillespie, a little off here
So
tonight.
I have a question for the city. So in that letter dated July of 2021, condition 3 was there.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, that is correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Danley.
Question of staff, what I'm confused on, I guess, is so the applicant is making the claim that what was built essentially fits the rest of the roadway from the terminus on the south up to Fairview. But in the staff report and in your proposal, it mentioned something about being inconsistent with the future plans or what have you. Can you talk more about that? Why have not others then been required to put in detached? And when might this plan that you're discussing be implemented?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, it is correct. To the north of this, Shamrock has been built out with attached sidewalks, including the one directly to the north, which I believe was probably approved on 2019 or 2018. The city has evolved on our process, our thinking for attached versus detached sidewalks since that time to now. So what was approved for Stephens or Lucky Lane subdivision, it's not what we want now. So we, at the time of 2021, had requested that they start doing detached sidewalks. Adjacent to the south of this, I think there is an application that's currently being reviewed called Abracadabra 2. And it's my understanding with that new subdivision that they are proposing detached sidewalks with landscape buffer. That is directly to the south and has not been built yet. It has been approved, sorry.
Thank you. I got
nothing?
I got nothing.
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Chris. John, real quick, Chris.
Yeah,
John, your hand's up. Are you in line?
My hand's not up, but I'm thinking about a question.
Okay, we'll come back in a minute then. We'll go to Chris. Go ahead.
It's doing that. This is a question for Mr. Moser. I don't know if you can answer this because it gets into the mapping, but I'm curious. You mentioned and so did the applicant, the extension of Shamrock to Emerald. But my question is when I look at the map, it looks to me that there's an opportunity to connect to President. There's clearly a gap there between the parcels. However, the actual land use map doesn't show specifically, it gets a little fuzzy in terms of if that's a possibility or not. And so I'm curious if you know the answer to that. It looks like it has been preserved for right away and the potential for future expansion.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, it's my understanding as you continue straight down Shamrock and then you hit President or those warehouses there on President, I believe that's all private land. I don't know if there's right of way there. If that's what you're asking.
Yeah,
that
to
would make
the
that connection.
far eastern edge of that parking lot next to the large warehouse that's almost straight up and down from the alignment of Shamrock. There's a dirt gap that exists between the back of that parking lot and then the parking lot that's to the east, but to the western edge of that parking lot. That is what right-of-way preservation often looks like until it's, fully built or extended to some extent, whoever's responsible. So I don't know if you can answer that question, but I'm curious. Do you see what I'm talking about?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, it's, as far as I can tell, at least on the GIS, there is no right of way there. There could be an easement in place. I didn't look that carefully at that subdivision, but that's all private. Those are individual parcels and privately owned.
So the plan as we know it is to extend to Emerald, but not to President.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, that is correct, that Shamrock would come down and then make the bend, I guess, on Meadowland and then go back.
Okay.
That direction and would connect as a collector. That's the idea and the plan of what.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
just to clarify a couple of things. Yeah, we can't find any right of way south connecting to President the right of way is a little choppy and there's improvements from those industrial places in that right of way of Emerald. So, and I just clarify one other thing. We understood the condition of approval at the beginning. We actually modified our landscape plan to show detached sidewalks on Shamrock. Construction started and ACHD literally in the field said, you need to match, and per their staff report said, you need to match our road section going north of here. That's why we're here.
Okay.
Not
You
ideal
headed
for
off.
anybody.
You actually headed off my line of questioning. That was where I was going to go, is when was the decision made? But it was actually in the field.
Yeah, it was during construction.
During
So,
construction.
of 22. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Year after our act.
Yeah. Right.
Mr. Chair.
I mean, sorry, John, I'm coming to you next.
Okay.
So just to be clear, so all of the approved construction documents approved by the city and approved by ACHD showed a detached sidewalk.
No. So I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. So we produced some plans to go to the city. Staff report went to the civil engineer. He's looking at ACHD staff report because they work with ACHD on their road design that said match the road section going north, or that's literally what their staff report says in here for this project. They submitted their construction documents with attached sidewalk. In the field, they then moved the road section 2 feet west to align with that Shamrock western side. It got approved and built. And then when we went back to get final, we have the final plat is sitting at the city of Boise right now. And when we went back to get approval sign offs on everything, there was this discrepancy between attached versus detached sidewalks. And so now we find ourselves here.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm going to go to Commissioner Mooney.
Okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, question for David for staff. So the way the staff recommends this is that currently on the west side of Shamrock, we've got attached sidewalk with pretty much rolled curb all the way down to this project. And that attached sidewalk with a rolled curb is already installed. And if we go as recommended by staff, they would be required to rip out that attached sidewalk with rolled curb and put in detached sidewalk, which would then match farther south into the next development, which would also be detached sidewalk. So the question is there an alternative to ripping out the attached sidewalk and getting another benefit to the public? For example, larger street trees, a dedication of one of those 2 lots as a common play area, or are there any other conditions that would be an alternative?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, it would be hard to get an alternative. I mean, the commission could consider trying to put some larger trees in. I didn't consider of requiring a common play area or lot. I'm sure the applicant might have concerns with that. But I mean, as far as the detached sidewalks, I'm not sure exactly how we can get the alternative in there, to answer your question.
Mr. Chair, and if I could address Commissioner Mooney, his question as well. With the attached sidewalk condition, we are proposing adding an additional street tree on the north, plus an additional street tree on the south landscape buffer, having that be 15.5 plus about an inch, so 15'7" along there. We've also added some additional landscape trees to the interior of the site as well to help enhance that as a concession to try to get this to work.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Mr. Semple.
Okay. Thanks, John. Commissioner Squires. Okay. Ashley's good.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Danley.
I feel like this is a headache commercial, right? My question, I guess, is kind of jumping on to Commissioner Gillespie's line of questioning with regard to the timing. I hear what you're saying. Clearly, the communication and jurisdiction stuff, as we just talked about, right? But the question I have is, so when you all were provided the guidance, or not even guidance, it was sort of told this is how you will do it by ACHD, and yet we have conflicting requirements from the city. Did at any point in time, did you all say, okay, time out, let's get everybody in the room together and figure this out and get specific and agreed upon guidance? Or did I miss that in this conversation somewhere? Because it probably could have happened.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Danley, no, you didn't miss it. That conversation didn't occur. I had assisted with the initial entitlement approval through the city. I send out all the conditions of approval, all the letters. There was some conflicts within the staff report that I think were exacerbated by some field visits by ACHD during construction. They approved a plan set that whoever didn't catch during their review when it went back through a secondary review. I understand that this is kind of asking for, forgiveness after the fact. In a way, we're just trying to figure out, so to clarify, there's a vertical curb on Shamrock, not rolled curb in front of this development. So what we're trying to do is get 24 houses to the market for families to move into here, ripping out 5-foot attached sidewalk, relocating a bunch of stuff, obviously time, money. That's the crux of it here. So we're really trying to figure out a way to provide a little bit of an additional benefit by enhancing some of the landscape. Is it ideal? No. And could it have gone different? I'm sure it could have. But that's neither here nor there, unfortunately. We're here asking and having a conversation and to see what the commission feels would be appropriate here.
Okay, any other questions for Ben?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, please, John. Thanks.
I got a question for a staff. On the analysis on our agenda package, page 918, I guess I think I disagree with this comment that the last sentence on that page says the requested modification to allow attached sidewalks along Shamrock Street would adversely impact the adjacent neighborhood by not providing any pedestrian amenities along Shamrock Street. David, that's not true, correct? Because there's pedestrian amenities. It's an attached sidewalk, correct?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I think what I was trying to get at, it doesn't provide the pedestrian amenities that the city would like to see in the detaching the sidewalk, the street calming, the protection that a detached sidewalk with a landscape buffer would provide. You are correct. They are providing pedestrian amenity in the sense that there is a sidewalk there. And so yes, that is correct, but it's not the pedestrian amenity that the city would like to see in the form of a detached and landscape buffer and all that what that implies.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure thing. Thanks, John. Okay. Any other questions? Any other questions? All right. Okay. Thanks, Ben. We'll go ahead and open this up for any public testimony. Okay. Anybody online, if you'd like to testify, please raise your hand. Okay. No takers. Ben, quick rebuttal or you're good? Okay. Let the record show that the applicant has yielded his rebuttal time. So we'll go ahead and bring this back before the commission to
Mr.
render a
Chairman.
decision. Commissioner Gillespie.
I move that we approve the amendment to, I guess, we refer to it as PUD 22-69 and delete condition 4 for all the terms and conditions in the staff report.
Do I ever?
Condition 4 was the one the city recommended.
The driveway. Right. Do I have a second? We get a second.
Second.
Okay, got a second from Commissioner Squires. All right. So for clarification,
That would leave condition 3 in place. The detached sidewalk.
the detached sidewalk. So we're basically approving condition 4. Yeah.
The deletion of condition 4.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Gillespie.
I think the record is clear. I'm sorry this happened. proper planning was avoidable. If the city is very clear on sidewalks, I'm surprised there was any lack of clarity here, but the condition is very clear. It was sent to the applicant on July 22nd of 2021 is the date of the letter. If the city wants to waive that condition now because of things that the applicant did, I'd like the city council to do it and not me, because we make conditions for real. And the applicant just blew by them, and we have no idea what ACHD said or didn't say or why they said it. And it's, so if the city council wants to let it go, let the city council let it go. But I would not support it. So there you go.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Squires.
as I said to my fellow commissioner up here, it just feels icky all the way around. I understand wanting to get to market. I get it. We need houses. But again, that's kind of a little bit of a manipulation of this commission to say, well, you're going to deny us this, you're going to deny homes. That's not fair. We didn't create the issue. Lack of project management, good project management created this issue. So I agree with my fellow commissioner on what he just stated. And I think this is an expensive decision or expensive mistake on your all's part.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Daly.
I'll be in support of the motion, but it's so crazy. We were just talking right during the break that sometimes these big issues that we think are going to be huge are sometimes easy, and sometimes the real smaller ones are much harder. And I think this is kind of one of those examples to an extent, but I'm going to add to the conversation one thing. I know Shamrock inside and out just from previous experiences, and I know that it's bigger than this project. The Shamrock corridor goes several miles and is a major collector bike route, one of the first bike routes, I think the first bike boulevard in the city. And so it's bigger than this one parcel. It's part of a system and part of a network. And I know it sucks given your needs and desires. I get it, but there's a bigger picture in addition to the details provided, I think, and discussed by Commissioner Gillespie. So I will be supportive of the motion.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Blanchard.
This is a headache commercial. You are right. It's unfathomable to me that we would ask a developer to tear out infrastructure, even though it was probably unwise, as Commissioner Squires noted, to go forward. So I will be supporting the motion. I just want to get some of these things on record too, is that I also feel like this is above our helmet, that this is really, we're 1-1 tonight on interagency fights. I think, we had, there's no fight. Yeah, well, there is, because ACHD thought that they could come to the site and dictate what was going to happen. And obviously the developer thought that too. Well, and then here we are. And so I feel like it's above our head, and someone else needs to answer that question as well, although we do have wide jurisdiction. But this is, I have to support this, but I feel like this is definitely a question above us to deal with.
Commissioner Mooney.
Mr. Chair, yeah, I'll support the motion as well. I guess I'd have been a little bit easier swayed if the applicant had come forward with some larger concessions to the mistake they made. So I'll be in support of the motion.
Okay, thanks. I'm with Commissioner Blanchard. Headache here. Ben, I've been in that position that you're in right now. It's intractable, right? I mean, we're going to deny the request tonight, it sounds like. ACHD is going to stay on their ground, so it is kind of above our pay grade at this point. It frustrates me to no end that we're talking about, when we talk about 200 feet of sidewalk, right? And there's an improvement over what was there previously, right? There's an attached sidewalk, which is an improvement over the previous condition. So it pains me to remove that, which is an improvement. It's made our city better, albeit not to the ideal that we'd like to see. And it still leaves you in that position where you have to negotiate additionally with ACHD. So it's just like a terrible lose-lose situation. Having said all of that, I wish you would have come forward prior to building it. That would have been, we would have had a much easier conversation, at that point. And that's kind of the gist of it, right? And that's, so lesson learned, I guess, moving forward. So best of luck moving ahead, Any other thoughts?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Daly.
Sorry, just one last thing. It's important because it's germane to this topic. Before this meeting, I requested of staff at a future work session, ACHD come before us because they are in the midst of updating their 7200 section, I think it is, of their policy manual, which is specifically about these things and what it is that they're going to be required or what they're going to require of development, what they're not. And then I would love for us to be able to figure out exactly what our role can and ought to be. So hopefully this discussion doesn't happen again.
Okay.
I will just tack on a couple things if I can.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris, quickly.
And it is hard to find that that it doesn't meet some kind of a standard when the sidewalks that you've installed will connect to the north. So, I think making that finding that, well, this isn't providing any value to the neighborhood, that is a little bit difficult for me. And I will also say that on page 1 of our city staff report says that the applicant must comply with ACHD. And so and we have that debate here frequently. And so there is some room here to argue. Again, I think not to us, but there's conflict there for sure.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and I think we're on the record with our thoughts. So we're going to go ahead and call the roll here. Again, we have a motion to approve the modifications as written within the staff report for PUD 22-69. I have to apologize. The motion was by Commissioner Gillespie, with a second by Commissioner Blanchard.
Removal of condition 4.
To remove, approve. Yes, exactly. Sorry. Yes. To remove approval of condition 4. To approve removal of condition 4. Sorry.
As per recommended by the staff. That might be
recommended.
helpful. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, it's getting late.
Yeah.
After 8, come on, I've been at it for 12 hours today. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Schaefer,
Aye.
Squires,
Aye.
Blanchard,
Aye.
Gillespie,
Aye.
Ganley,
Aye.
Rooney,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Break time. We'll take a 5-minute.
Or second field.
52 to 7.
Oh, James burning his eyes.
Just
burning
started
the back of my
the
head.
quarter. So there's like a whole 52 to 7.
Because all right, let's go. Robert Squires is a great. No, that's
Weird. Yeah. All right. We'll go ahead and get rolling. Welcome back. We're going to go to item number 5. Now we're getting a little salty now. Item number 5, PUD 22-62 and SUB 22-64. Platform architecture, 1022 West Tardy Street. Conditional use permit for a planned residential development comprised of 4 single-family units on 0.58 acres in R1C zone and the associated preliminary plat for 4 buildable lots and 1 common lot. Sabrina Mortensen from staff is up first.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, the item before you is a request for a conditional use permit for a planned residential development comprised of 4 single-family homes on 0.58 acres located at 1022 West Targhee Street in an R1C zone. A preliminary plat for a residential subdivision comprised of 1 common and 4 buildable lots is also included. The subject property currently contains 1 single-family home and accessory structures which will be removed to accommodate the proposed development. 4 new homes are proposed, which will be accessed by a shared driveway from Targhee Street. Through the PUD, the applicant requests deviations from dimensional standards in code as shown on this slide. However, the proposal does comply with the density limits of the R1C zone and all exterior setback requirements. All landscaping, screening, and open space requirements are also met. A recommended condition of approval requires the home on Lot 1 to have an entrance oriented towards Targhee Street to provide consistency with the existing streetscape character in the area. The applicant proposes pedestrian connections throughout the development along with 5-foot wide attached sidewalks along Targhee Street. A recommended condition of approval requires the improvements along Targhee to instead include detached sidewalks with a 10-foot landscape buffer to accommodate Class 1 trees under the existing overhead power lines. The applicant has expressed opposition to this condition. However, the planning team finds that detached sidewalks are appropriate in this location as the comprehensive plan encourages improving pedestrian safety and comfort. The site is in close proximity to existing transit along Broadway Avenue, and there's potential for other properties along Targhee to redevelop in a similar manner in the future. The planning team finds that as conditioned, the application complies with all PUD and subdivision requirements and recommends approval. And I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, thanks, Sabrina. Next, we'll hear from the applicant. I see.
Can you hear me?
You can. Hi, Catherine. Good evening.
Hi. Not sure.
You can start with your name and address, please, for the record.
Sure. Kathy Sewell, Platform Architecture and Design, 280 North 8, Suite 118, Boise 83702, architect for the project. We're in agreement with staff's site-specific conditions of approval 1, 3, and 4. As Sabrina mentioned, the one condition that we do want to discuss with the commission tonight is the detached sidewalk with a 10-foot landscape buffer. The project as proposed provides a 5-foot attached sidewalk. This was proposed primarily to maintain the existing street sidewalk development pattern in the neighborhood. We do understand the benefit of a detached sidewalk as providing a more pedestrian-friendly experience, particularly along busier streets. The challenge with our project in an established neighborhood like along Targhee is the existence of attached sidewalk system along the streets, albeit disconnected, and the existing street right-of-way dimensions do not provide the required width to accommodate a detached sidewalk system without significant impacts to the properties. And I was hoping I could share my screen if that's possible.
Yeah, you should be able to. We may need to do some adjustment of the tech on our side. So hang on 1 minute.
And I apologize, I guess my video might not be showing either. Okay. So I can share my screen now?
You can. I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. Staff,
Okay.
you good? Mhm.
Quickly, just want to walk the commission through the overall area. This is Targhee Street. Here's our subject property. This is an R1C zone, so a fairly low density zone. You'll see that Targhee is off of Broadway and then dead ends just at the base of Federal Way. And the other thing that this map shows is that Targhee is a pretty low traffic type street. It's not any kind of a through street, so very, very little traffic along there. The next slide, let me back up for a second. So this slide here, I just wanted to show, once again, here's Broadway. Targhee. Here's our property. The red indicates the existing 5-foot attached sidewalk system along the street. Broadway does have an attached sidewalk system. So that's just, it's kind of broken up along here. You can see here these narrower lots, some newer type development, a flag lot here, newer type development here. I'll have a picture later of this newer development, which does not have any sidewalks on it. So the other challenge with our project, as I mentioned, was the right-of-way width. For ACHD, Targhee is a local street. Standard local street section is a 33-foot wide street with a 47-foot right-of-way. This would provide for an attached sidewalk per ACHD policy. Targhee's street section is 30 feet wide streetway with 36-foot right-of-way. And just a note here that with ACHD, the 33-foot wide street section allows for parking on both sides. So Targhee is a little bit narrow in that regard. Once you start to require a detached sidewalk, typically with an 8-foot planter, as Boise City often indicates, then you're looking at for a standard local street, still the 33-foot wide street section, but now you need 59 foot of right-of-way. Targhee is a little unique in trying to provide a detached sidewalk, is that along the north side of Targhee, there's a power line. And so as staff is conditioned with our application, a 10-foot planter. So with the requirements for Targhee to provide a detached sidewalk on both sides of the street would require 60 feet. And as indicated up here, right now, there's just 36 feet. So to provide a, Boise City's preferred sidewalk system would require an additional 24 feet of right-of-way to make that happen, which would result in easements on the properties along there. As proposed right now with our 5-foot attached sidewalk, assuming that, at some point in time, hopefully both sides of the street, we get a connected sidewalk system back up to Broadway. This would require a total of 44 foot, so an additional 8 foot of right-of-way required. So unfortunately, Targhee's a little narrow, and with our application, as I mentioned, we did feel that the maintaining the attached sidewalk system was appropriate. Just quickly, some photos here. Here's the intersection of Targhee and Broadway, looking down towards Targhee, towards our site. You'll start to see here's some of that attached sidewalk system just west of that intersection. And one item to note is that a lot of the homes along Targhee are built a little close to the street. And so if you can imagine trying to provide a detached sidewalk system here, that sidewalk would be in that driveway. Moving along a little bit more quicker here. Here's our subject property. It's just improved with a curb and gutter. Here's the east side of that property section. We do have a irrigation ditch that runs through. Here's just directly across the street where we do have attached sidewalk system in place. Another street section. This is just looking west down towards the dead end of Targhee. No sidewalks on either side, but once again, kind of get the sense of where existing improvements are on that street. Once again, right across the street, the 5-foot attached sidewalk. Once again, just trying to imagine this is a detached system that would certainly be close to that house at some point in time. This is right across the street. Once again, imagining a detached sidewalk, that sidewalk would be, right at those garage doors. Just looking east towards Broadway, right next to our parcel, just some landscaping and other improvements along there. This is down west end of Targhee, where there is some newer development, kind of more of that narrow lot infill, where they just provide an attached sidewalk system. And then this is almost at the dead end section of Targhee, where once again, a newer type development where there's no sidewalk, just the pedestrian connection from the street to the house. So just wanted to come back to this slide real quick. These were the sidewalk sections that I identified. And then here's our specific project. here's that sidewalk system that's across the street. Here's where we are proposing to provide a 5-foot attached sidewalk. This will require an additional 5 foot of right-of-way dedication to ACHD. As proposed, we do have 2 trees planted in that buffer between the sidewalk and the house. The red here shows what would be a detached sidewalk with a 10-foot landscape buffer. Obviously these 2 trees would move into this area here. Do just want to note that, with that detached sidewalk, it does start to encroach into that front elevation of that one house. And then just finally, part of the problem, once again, with this idea of a detached sidewalk in this particular situation is how that terminates. We're mid-block. This image here shows where our 5-foot attached sidewalk would occur at the east end of our property. And then here's at the west end. We have to work around a power pole on our side. But then here's what happens when you start to introduce the detached sidewalk. We are, hitting fences, disconnection from the street on both sides. So anyway, I just wanted to, as we mentioned earlier, we certainly understand the benefit of a detached sidewalk. In our case, we believe providing the 5-foot attached will provide the connectivity along Targhee and provide a consistent development pattern along the street. We believe we still meet the intent of the comprehensive plan by providing a continuous network of sidewalks, and we're improving the connectivity in an established neighborhood where there are really an absence of sidewalks or they're incomplete. So we certainly appreciate your consideration on this item. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. First, we'll check in with the Neighborhood Association. I see Mr. Berg is online. Eric, are you here to testify on behalf of the Neighborhood Association on this item? Eric, can you hear us?
Yep, the CENA has no comment on this project.
Okay.
They have comment on the other one, so I'll save you time.
Gotcha. Sounds good. Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and open this up then for any questions by the commission.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Blanchard.
If I might really quickly, Sabrina, have we not done anything in city code to address the use of flag lots?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Blanchard, currently flag lots are allowed within our city code.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Mooney.
Question for staff or maybe Mr. Smith. Regarding the applicant's explanation of the detached impacts and easements and all that, is there, yeah, I understand the city's desire for the detached versus attached, but in this case, it seems attached makes the most amount of sense given the right of way. Does there come a point where it's a taking where we're insisting on detached and we're ended up shoving sidewalks well into property lines, private property?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mooney, I would defer to legal on that.
James.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, for the record, James Smith, Deputy City Attorney. Facetiously, I might say, how much time do you have, Commissioner? But that becomes a very complex subject, and without conceding that it's even implicated here, I would say maybe a better way to approach that concern is to, if you would like to investigate that further, is to further develop the record through some questions to the applicant in terms of practical impacts, economic impact to the developer, what the differences would be between the two different types of sidewalks, how it relates to the overall size of the site, cost of the development, things like that in terms of what the how those sidewalks would affect the neighborhood in terms of mitigating pedestrian activities and anticipated impacts from this development, and perhaps questions along those lines to staff as well.
Thanks, James. Mr. Chair.
Yes, please, John.
So I guess a question for staff then, regarding the applicant's depiction of the detached sidewalk, and how the one that struck me was the ends up in a fence line. So how do we explain to me how that's an improved connectivity for the neighborhood versus a detached versus the attached, which doesn't run into that fence that they showed in the picture?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mooney, as the applicant depicted, if the detached sidewalks are installed, it would run into fence on either side of the property. If the attached sidewalk were to be installed, it would run into a berm on one property and a power pole on the other property line. So either way, until the adjacent properties redevelop, that connection isn't going to be ideal. Staff's opinion is that once those properties do redevelop in the future, having the detached sidewalk is preferable because of the increased pedestrian safety and comfort.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Gillespie.
A question for the city. So the applicant also made the argument that there was some very specific facts related to Targhee, that it dead ended into the slope, I think on the west end. So it wasn't really a through street. It was it was collecting a relatively small amount of traffic. And they use that argument to say, therefore the benefit of a detached sidewalk is somewhat diminished because it's not a really busy street to begin with because of the physical characteristics. Did the applicant make that argument to you, and what did you make of it when they did?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Gillespie, the applicant provided some arguments about, specifically where the sidewalk would dead end, not so much about the specifics of Targhee. Through this current application, they are proposing to add 3 additional units onto a site that currently has 1. There is potential for other properties along Targhee to redevelop in a similar manner and add additional units that would hypothetically increase pedestrian traffic as well. And there is existing transit along Broadway that we do want to provide good pedestrian access to.
Mr. Chairman. No. So Sabrina, just looking at the area map. So the applicant pointed out that Targhee kind of dead ends just to the east of Federal Way. Isn't that where there's like a big, like a bank almost? So that in fact, is the applicant's contention that Targhee will never connect on the west side to Federal Way? Is that correct? Or what's your, it seems correct to me. I have to pose everything as a question because we're on Jeopardy, so.
Yeah, Commissioner Chair, or Mr. Chair, Commissioner Gillespie, I would say it's unlikely that that would be extended to connect to Federal Way in the future.
You'd also have to go over the Reidenbach Canal. Yeah. And climb the hill, and go over a canal.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Daly.
But that would potentially go to the Federal Way, the New York Canal pathway, which is probably in our pathways plan, right? So there is a potential for a connection to get up and down. My question to you, Sabrina, is I'm trying to look this up, but I couldn't find it. Accessory dwelling unit, does that trigger sidewalk construction?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Danley, no, the city currently doesn't require sidewalk improvements for ADUs.
So in order for the other parcels along the street to also trigger a sidewalk requirement, it would either be a rezone or it would have to be something just like this, basically.
Commissioner Danley, Mr. Chair, we also do require that for duplexes as well as minor land divisions.
Right.
So.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I'll go ahead and just remind everybody that there are, additional structures proposed in this application. It's not just a sidewalk discussion. So felt like that might be a little germane to what we're looking at here. Okay. All right. No more questions. All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll go ahead and open it up for any public testimony. If you're online and would like to testify, please raise your hand. Our audience is dwindling here in person.
Dwindled. It's pretty much.
Okay. All right. We'll go ahead then and bring it back to the applicant for a quick rebuttal.
Thank you, Kathy Sewell. I think I've worked with this developer on a couple other projects where we have had to come in and put in detached sidewalks, and we've had the real estate to do so. And just in this particular situation with Targhee, recognizing the unique situation of, essentially a dead end street, low density R1C zone, we felt that with the existing system already in place and just the proximity of other properties to the street and really trying to envision detached sidewalk all along there, it just seemed more appropriate to maintain the attached sidewalk and hope for future connectivity all the way to Broadway. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and bring these back before the commission to render a decision. Again, PUD 22-62 and SUB 22-64. And as a reminder, we're recommending on the sub.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Blanchard.
I move that we approve PUD 22-62 at 1022 West Targhee Street, and that we recommend approval to council of sub 22-64, also at 1022 West Targhee.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion to approve and recommend approval with a second. Mr. Blanchard, would you like to start us out with some discussion?
I guess, yeah, my only question was whether we're still doing this. I'll apologize to the planning gods for all the flag lots that we've approved in that neighborhood, but I guess there's a conflict, I guess in my mind as an urbanist between what's really been deprecated in planning practice, building on flag lots like that, but also at the same time, knowing that this is a good place for density. So it is a little bit, I'm a little bit conflicted on that, but yeah, there's nothing inherently wrong in the code. So I'll be supporting this.
Okay. Thanks, Chris.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Daly.
It's sort of the sidewalk person, I guess I'll own that. I understand, I completely and totally understand what the staff is trying to do. And this is one of those sort of square peg round hole type of issues. In greenfield areas, it's easy can be. In areas that are less dense, larger lots, still fairly easy. In this situation, it's incredibly difficult. I look at this environment, I see a local street that dead ends. Detached sidewalks are primarily used as a bit of a defense mechanism on a busier road. I don't see that in this situation. Two is the several new homes in that vicinity and the likelihood of them turning over and redeveloping anytime soon to get the additional detached sidewalk. I don't see that. I just don't see the probability being very high. And I think probably most concerning is what the image was shown is if we do require this, there's no way for that sidewalk to be pulled back across somebody else's private property to come back to the attached sidewalk. So we're having an island essentially that's going to act as an island for an indeterminate amount of time until the two parcels east-west of this one redevelop. And so I'd rather have the attached sidewalk now continue to build along this section and get it done than stand our ground on something that I don't see happening in really anytime in the future. So for those reasons, I'll be supportive of the motion.
Commissioner Gillespie?
Mr. Chairman, point of clarification. So I think the motion maintains the condition requiring a detached sidewalk.
Correct.
Would you like to?
I do need to amend my, to say
Okay.
that, yes, I think we approve it without requiring the detached sidewalk.
Do you agree? Well,
Okay. We're going to back it up just 1 minute. All right. So Commissioner Blanchard made the motion. You are moving to amend said motion to remove the detached sidewalk requirement. As the seconder, does Commissioner Danley?
I agree
support
with the
that?
amendment.
Okay.
So Robert,
Okay.
My-
Commissioner Gillespie.
my advice is now just say that you'll accept the amended motion with unanimous consent and give everyone a chance to say, no, we want to vote on it.
Okay.
So you just have to say.
Hold the strings over here.
That's for me as the motion maker to accept the amendment.
You amended, we're good.
Just a point of information. So technically, a motion to the table, we want to amend it. Robert says you have to vote on it, blah, 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 blah. Another way we do it, council does it, is this friendly amendment. And I think the way you clean that up is if Bob just says, the motioner and the seconder have agreed that we can have attached sidewalks, and we'll change the motion without objection from any of us.
Yes.
So you kind of have to say that.
I know. Thank you. Thank you.
Hope you were taking notes.
Yeah. So we have a motion that has been amended to remove the detached sidewalk condition within the staff report. The motioner and the seconder have agreed to said amendment. With unanimous consent, we could proceed with said motion.
Without objection.
Without objection. Okay, very good. We have a clean slate. So now.
Anybody else? So now, Matt,
Commissioner
Mr.
Danley,
Chairman.
now Commissioner Danley was commenting.
Oh, he's done.
I'm done.
And you're good.
And now I agree
Now
with the motion.
You agree with the motion. Okay,
Done.
done. Commissioner Squires, any thoughts?
I,
No. You're good?
Mr. Chairman, I was panicking on his original motion. So, and was like, who is this person next to me?
And I'll just say for the record, and because poor Ben is here, there's significant factual differences between
There are.
the condition on Shamrock Street
Yeah.
and, large open property and a very tight, old, not going anywhere street like Targhee right there. So I think there are real factual differences here.
Okay.
Sorry, Ben.
Yeah.
Well,
Commissioner Mooney,
I
are
don't
you
like
enjoying the show?
bacon.
I am indeed. I'm glad I was confused by Commissioner Danley's second and then not really seconding. So I agree with him completely. An island is not what I wanted.
Okay, that's perfect. All right, very good. We're going to go ahead and call the vote then. We're on the same page with the motion here. So we're recommending approval of SUB 22-64 and approving PUD 22-62 with one amendment, and that being the removal of condition number 2 requiring a detached sidewalk. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Chairman.
Oh,
Just to be clear, so we're not removing condition 2.
we're
We're just
recommending.
amending it
to
to
say
allow
an
for
attached.
attached
Correct.
sidewalk.
That's a good. That's a
want
good.
a sidewalk.
That's what we want. We want an attached sidewalk. That's true. That's fair.
Now we go.
Staff, we're okay. Are you enjoying the show too?
Can't wait,
Okay.
can't wait to read the meeting minutes.
I know, right?
We need to go home.
All right.
Detail.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Schaefer,
Aye.
Squires,
Aye.
Blanchard,
Aye.
Gillespie.
Aye.
Hanley,
Aye.
Mooney,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah. Well, you.
Yeah.
As you're wrapped up, though. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Are we taking a break, Milt? I'm getting water. Okay. All right. Milt's just walking around now. All right. Last one. Ben, you're last again. Yeah. All right. Last but not least tonight, item number 6, PUD 22-53 and SB 22-55. Rodney Evans and Partners at 478 and 506 West Highland Street. These items were deferred from our meeting on December 12th. It's a conditional use permit for a planned residential development comprised of 5 single-family units on 0.64 acres. And the preliminary plat for said subdivision, 1 common lot and 5 buildable lots. And we're here from Sabrina Mortensen again with staff.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, the item before you is a request for a conditional use permit for a planned residential development comprised of 5 single-family homes on 0.64 acres located at 478 and 506 West Highland Street in an R1C zone. A preliminary plat for a residential subdivision comprised of 1 common and 5 buildable lots is also included. The subject property currently contains 2 single-family homes which will be preserved and 2 detached garages which will be demolished to accommodate the proposed development. 3 new 2-story homes are proposed to the north of the 2 existing 1-story homes. A shared driveway from Highland Street will be constructed between the 2 existing homes and will provide all vehicular access for the development. The planning team finds that the application complies with all required PUD findings, and to date, no public agencies have voiced opposition to this request. However, written opposition has been received from the neighborhood association and 1 neighbor. Their comments express concern regarding the reduced lot sizes and internal setbacks which are requested with the PUD. Parking and congestion along the shared driveway, lack of amenities, the potential for the proposed homes to be occupied by groups of students who may generate higher impacts than traditional single families, and the potential for city services, including fire and solid waste, to have difficulty accessing the site. However, the proposal complies with the 8 unit per acre density limit of the R1C zone, and the requested deviations from the dimensional standards will allow the existing homes on the site to be preserved while complying with all external setback requirements. As the project is under 1 acre in size, no amenities are required and more than 100 square feet of open space per unit is provided. 2 to 3 parking spaces are proposed for each single family home in compliance with code, and parking along the shared driveway will be restricted on both sides to ensure adequate clearance for emergency services. Public Works and the Fire Department have submitted comments indicating that solid waste and emergency services can be provided to the development as proposed. Code also allows up to 5 unrelated individuals to occupy a dwelling unit, and the largest homes within the development would contain 4 bedrooms and 1 office. In conclusion, the planning team recommends approval of the PUD and subdivision, and I will stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Sabrina. Next, we'll hear from the applicant.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Ben Semple, Rodney Evans and Partners, 1450 West Bannock Street, Boise, Idaho, 83702. We are in agreement with the staff report and all conditions of approval, including the reconstruction of sidewalk as detached along Highland. There were concerns, not during the neighborhood meeting, but during or looking at correspondence from neighbors regarding privacy, property value, access, and the potential for the site to have homes that are rented. As Sabrina had stated, Boise Fire and Solid Waste both confirmed that their access is adequate. We're setting up a cart staging area in here for carts to be staged, and then they would more than likely pay for carry-out service from interior to the site. The driveway will be a minimum of 20 feet wide. It doesn't go more than 150 feet into the site, so Boise Fire indicated they could pull in and back out, no problem. The homes are designed to limit windows in bedrooms or livable space on the exterior sides. So the 2 homes in the back probably would have the most concern for privacy for neighbors. Those have transom windows or within a stairwell to the 2nd floor. The homes to the east, it's a 5-building condo development. Those are also 2-story-ish, partial 2-story. They definitely have a 2nd story with windows. But considering this site is vastly underutilized in terms of housing, I could only see an increase in property values. They'll have new comps in the neighborhood with garages and more than adequate parking. And regarding renters, if you haven't rented a house in your life, you're probably the exception to the rule. Renters, whether they be students, co-renting professionals that work somewhere together and want to reduce their costs because of housing costs right now, as well as the potential for purchase for generational living or single family living for that matter. Can't restrict renting in a residential neighborhood. It goes against fair housing. So it's kind of a non-starter for us. But other than that, we feel really great about the response that we've had from city staff as well as other agencies, and really look forward to this project moving forward. I'd stand for any questions.
Okay, thanks, Ben. All right, we will check in with Neighborhood Association. Mr. Berg, representing CENA.
Hi, can I get the ability to share screen?
You sure can. Just hang on one second.
Thank you very much. Sorry, that was the wrong PowerPoint. I do this a little too much, I'm beginning to notice. Um, okay. Oh, this is very frustrating. Well, there it is. Fine. Apologize about that. There we go. All right, that should come across.
We can see it.
All right, Eric Berg, 1301 South Grant Ave, Boise, Idaho. All right. All of design and architecture is at its core demonstrating an intention and design function. Frank Lloyd Wright went as far to say that form and function are one. This means that when we examine any project, we have to understand what the intended use is and follow that form of the project to the intended function. We can't separate the two because they're one and the same. This project is clearly not designed nor intended for single family use, which changes how we have to look at the factors for approval for a planned unit development. This project poses variances and reduction after reduction to fit a project that is impossible to see as a single family unit and provides no required benefit to the community. That's why the Southeast Neighborhood Association voted unanimously to oppose the project. Planned unit developments are intended to provide certain benefits to the public and developer through the allowance of creative designs, which is part of Boise Code. The code outlines a variety of benefits a PUD might create for the public, and yet the applicant fails to demonstrate either in their documentation, testimony, or anything else that the project meets any of them. There's no common open space, merely a common paved road, nor are there any natural features preserved. At no point does the letter of intent or testimony even attempt to provide examples of a public benefit, which is required finding to approve a PUD. Without any required public benefit, they ask for reduced setbacks, reduced lot size requirements, along with a complete frontage exemption. Allowing variances requirements clearly require a public benefit as laid out in the PUD code, or a hardship or exceptional circumstance as laid out in the variance code. There is simply no public benefit, and there are no hardships or exceptional circumstances in this project. There are no survey discrepancies or natural features that would require reduced setbacks to make the lot buildable. There's no justification for the reduced lot size, for example, to allow for a public amenity. There is simply no basis in code whatsoever to grant the reductions they are asking for. The exemptions and variances they ask for provide benefit only to the developer, not to the public, to fit the form and function of multifamily dormitories into the R1C zone. The reason that this is so important to insist on a public benefit and on not negatively affecting the vicinity is that that is how code is designed to work. The agreement we have come to as a society is that people can develop their property either by right or with conditions. The barrier to get approved for a by right development is properly low. Once you show you qualify, no public benefit need be presented. The development is assumed to be a net positive or neutral on others by simply meeting the code. The code, in theory at least, is designed such that by right development has effectively already gotten the consent and faith of the public through the code adoption process. Conditional use permits, plan unit developments, variances, non-conforming uses demand a higher bar because they're asking for exemptions to that code. These are exemptions to that consent and faith of the public. They are allowed by the standard, but it is a higher bar, which is why public benefits and lack of negative consequences to the vicinity is required. The agreement between the public and the applicant becomes in that case that the public is willing to trade some exemption for other public benefits as long as the effects are not negative. The definition in the code of dwelling single family is a building designed for use and occupancy by no more than one family. For the Plan A building, it encompasses 4 bedrooms and 4.5 baths according to the plan. In addition, there is an office den, which legally qualifies as a bedroom, and in other developments by the same applicant, it has been admitted that there is nothing preventing it to be used and rented as a bedroom. So these are effectively 5-bedroom units. There's also a loft that is larger in size than all but the master bedroom and could also be conceivably used as one. Plan B buildings have 4 bedrooms with an additional office and den that can again be utilized as a bedroom in addition to the 4 bedrooms. When one looks at these floor plans, the form and function is clear and most closely resembles other duplexes and homes submitted by this exact same applicant with a plethora of bedrooms and bathrooms whose sole purpose is to house college students. We know this because nowhere else in the city are these sorts of houses built. Even in our current housing shortage, this form of building resides only within a small radius from the university because the form is optimized for the dormitory style use. Now, I want to be clear. There is no inherent problem in building projects that are solely intended to be used by students. However, this use radically changes the reality of the decision factors that the commission must meet. For example, the commission must find, in addition to other provisions, that the proposed use will not place an undue burden on transportation and other public facilities in the vicinity. The site is large enough to accommodate the proposed use, and the proposed use, if it complies with all conditions imposed, will not adversely affect other property in the vicinity. Understanding that this project is built with the intent to house 5 adults fundamentally changes how we look at the burden placed on the vicinity. Parking requirements for 2 cars per dwelling unit makes sense to accommodate the assumed demand of a family that might have 1 to 3 drivers at any time. However, this fails to prevent burden to the vicinity when the project is designed for a maximum of 5 drivers at any time. The one thing we know about college students is they're all of the right age to have a car. Some areas where these projects have been approved have been able to take some of the burden on surface streets that, while not removing the burden, has mitigated it some. I live next to some of these projects. However, this project is on a private drive that parking will not be usable on due to its width, as the applicant has said. Parking on both sides of the drive would prevent emergency services from accessing the building, even though that's the extra parking that would be necessary to alleviate the burden of the vicinity. If you were to park these, you are going to be parking 2 in their garage and then the rest of them out on Highland, because none of that rest of the stub street is allowed for parking, as the applicant said. The same logic goes for public services as well. Public work is on saying that because of inadequate service space, carry-out service will not be suggested, but will be required for the trash and recycling carts. Again, while on a single-family resident, that might have a small number of adults or a family of adults and children utilizing solid waste services, this will have a minimum of 5 adults every day. I've seen firsthand in my neighborhood how these projects routinely end up having to put their trash and recycling into other people's bins, as a single bin per dwelling unit is insufficient for 5 adults living in the same building. The reason we must, and here's some pictures of similar issues with parking and service issues for these type of by design student buildings. The reason we must see projects as what they are intended for and what they are designed to do is these are the effects that are felt by the city, public services, and neighbors. It's not theoretical effects, but the fact that real lived human experiences show that must be taken into account when considering whether planned unit developments are in the public's best interest. I live next to one of these projects, and being on a Grant Ave, where it is a road that has surface parking on the road, being on an alleyway, there are still burdens, but it alleviates a lot of these. What I'm worried about is the fact that if you're going to do this on a dead-end road so far away from Surface Street, that you're going to run into really big problems. The answer in this case is obvious. The project fails to meet the standard and code to allow for a PUD and must be rejected. We really do want to see more infill in this area like we saw on Targhee, but we need to see a proposal that meets the standard, provides public benefit, and doesn't burden public services or the vicinity. And we hope to see the applicant make such a proposal in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berg. Okay, go ahead and open this up for any questions by the commission.
I have a, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Gillespie.
So I have a question for the city and for Mr. Berg. So I have dutifully chewed through the project report, and I did not see there a condition, or a finding required for a PUD that it provide a public amenity or a public benefit. It wasn't one of the, I think there were 5 conditions. So I guess my question to both the city and to Mr. Berg is, did I miss something? And where does this notion of benefit come into our approval criteria?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Gillespie, there is no finding that requires that. It is stated in the purpose statement of the PUD section, and the PUD requirements do require amenities over an acre or 100 square feet of open space per unit under an acre.
Mr. Berg, do you have any thoughts on that question?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, Boise Code 1103-047A says that PUDs are intended to provide certain benefits to the public and developer through the allowance of creative designs. I think that's very clear that if you were to do a PUD, you have 2 burdens. 1, the developer gets something out of it, and 2, the public gets something out of it. And I don't expect them to put a park in a lot size of this size, but there's nothing in testimony, in documents, or anything else that establishes that there is any benefit to the public. And because there are only negatives to the public, I think it's pretty clear reason to reject this proposal.
Mr. Simple, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, please.
So, Mr. Simple, is it your argument that the benefit to the public is you're providing additional density and housing in a city that's short of housing?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Gillespie, yeah, the intent of this project is to help in a very small way address affordability and housing costs by providing additional units that can help thereby drop in the bucket, reduce overall costs, which we see as a public benefit.
Mr. Chairman.
No.
So Mr. Berg, is it your argument that that in fact is not a public benefit, that adding housing to a city that needs more housing is simply a private benefit accruing presumably to Mr. Simple and his owners or renters?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Commissioner, my argument is that you could argue that same thing for any development of any sort, and there would be no reason to have a requirement for requiring a public benefit if all that you would be needing to establish a public benefit is saying, I'm building housing, right? If any development could meet this standard, then why would we have the standard in the first place? It's certainly a benefit to the city to have more housing, but that is the inherent requirement in a by use situation, not necessarily a planned unit development, conditional use permit, variance type place. It has a higher bar is my argument.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Gillespie.
So a question to the city. So the city council in writing their code did decide that for PUDs greater than an acre, a specific public benefit must be included, and the code lists out what those are in some detail, and we fuss about those all the time. But the city council in its wisdom decided for smaller, less than an acre PUDs not to include that as a criteria requirement. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Gillespie, that's correct. For PUDs under an acre, the requirement is just 100 square feet of open space per unit.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Daly.
Just something else to consider here, I guess, in this line of thinking is that, so there's already sidewalks in this vicinity or on this parcel. So there's an inability to provide that benefit. Just food for thought. I'm going to guess you're writing a sizable impact fee check, and you're not going to be seeing any benefits to the arterial system anywhere near you because it's not in the CIP. So the public at large is going to be receiving monies for projects that are going to go probably well outside of your area. More food for thought, I guess. But question of staff. So in this instance, this notion of variance versus this is a CUP, and this is in the this is a CUP for a PUD, and God love our planning acronyms.
Yeah.
But you get my point is that this is permitted within the PUD of our zone, is to allow these types of shifts of setbacks and such and parcel size in order to fulfill what our code says on PUDs, subject to the conditional use permit, which does have its own set of standards about public health, safety, comp plan, and all of that stuff. But that's the general argument of the city. Is that right?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Danley, that's correct. If they were requesting variations from the exterior setbacks, that would require a variance, but internal to the site, that can be approved by the commission through the PUD.
Thank you.
Yep. Good. Okay. No more questions, it looks like. John, you good? Okay. All right. Thank you all. We'll go ahead and open this up for any public testimony. Got a few folks online. If you'd like to testify, please raise your hand and we'll run down the list. So we got maybe Kirk Hall up first.
Yes, this is Kirk Hall. I live at 346 West Reese, which is a property to the east of this. I'm just curious if any of you on the commission have been by the property.
Mr. Hall, we can't answer any questions at this time.
Okay. Well, what I realized when Mr. Berg was talking is that I understand the two homes that are remaining are past their sell-by date and currently are being rented. One has one person, the other has four. The homes that will be built behind them will be quite unattractive to someone buying for themselves and their family. Most likely they'll be purchased for rental because that's how you can make your money off of it. So it's pretty clear what the purpose is. I'm also concerned, we've had a number of activities in the area, particularly the one at Highland and South Londoner, that's now just an empty lot, and we lost our Sequoia. So I'm just kind of curious as to why this wasn't done by removing the other two houses and having a true planned unit development. I do note that I was pleased to hear that the windows overlooking the properties are being set in a way that they don't intrude on either property, because with 5-foot setbacks, all the trees are going to be removed. All that really separates the two properties are fences. And a question really for the developer: who owns the fences? Who's going to maintain them? And that's all I really need to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Looks like we have Alexandra Monjar up next.
Hi, my name is Alexandra Monjar. I live at 2222 West Kootenai Street. I just wanted to mention my support for this project. I think that preserving the existing housing and keeping materials out of the landfill while adding density to an area that has existing infrastructure is a smart use of creative opportunities in our zoning code. And I don't think that the city has an interest in deciding what type of housing is attractive to what type of resident, whether that be owner or renter. And I really think that the housing itself is great to have flexibility in how it can be used. It could be used for students. It could be used for a single family. It could be used for a multi-generational family that needs maybe a little more privacy for adult members of that family, or even single adults working at or near the university. So there are a lot of different people that could reside in this housing, and we don't know who that will be. I think the main thing is that we provide housing and allow people to live in places that meet their needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Monjar. Anyone else online that would like to testify, please raise your hand. Okay, very good. We'll go ahead and close public testimony. We'll bring it back to the applicant for a rebuttal.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Yeah, the intended use here is to build some housing, whether that's co-share, multi-generational, family. Single families look very different depending on where you go. They can be 2 people, they can be 6 people. There's a lot of housing in our valley that has 4, 5, 6 bedrooms in larger subdivisions. Just because this is an infill development doesn't mean that it's unattractive to that type of buyer. I would argue that it's more attractive to people that work downtown, work at St. Luke's. There's a group of nursing workers that want to all live together because that helps save money. This is the place for them. We're not proposing any variances. Everything is a request on the PUD internal. We're meeting or exceeding all of the setbacks external to this project. The single family homes remaining in the front, they're set back pretty far from Highland, which actually helps facilitate detached sidewalks with street trees between the sidewalk and the curb, which in my mind is a public benefit and an amenity. As discussed, that helping address housing costs in general, I feel is a public amenity. We are trying to retain trees where possible, where they don't fall in the building envelopes. We've had a certified arborist on the site, has a full mitigation report. We've talked to the neighbor to the west of here. We're working with him because there's a lot of volunteer trees in the fence lines and they're dropping branches. There's a couple things that look like they're going to fall on houses soon. Those will be coming down. We're actually talking with him about planting some trees in his yard because he has a larger yard space to help address some mitigation. Regarding the fencing, I don't know if that was the neighbor that was on the neighborhood meeting or not, but this developer intends to repair, replace that fencing as necessary to really make this development a nice improvement. And I mean, we have no feedback from any jurisdiction that indicates any negative impact on any facility, public, private, or otherwise. So we look forward to this project moving forward, and I would respectfully request your approval. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Ben. Okay, we'll bring this back before the commission to render a decision. One last reminder that we're recommending on the sub on SUB 22-55. And then we also have PUD 2253.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Danley.
I'll make a motion that we recommend approval for SUB 22-55 and that we approve PUD 22-53 with the terms and the conditions set forth in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, yeah, motion to approve by Commissioner Danley with a second by Commissioner Gillespie. Chris, you want to start us off?
Yeah. So a few different things. One, I think it's creative. I think you're seeing a courtyard concept in this application that is starting to have its day again in the planning discussion around this country. Is a different type of housing product. And that's kind of what this is. So I think that's a good thing. One other thing is with the sub, I believe you can create a deed restriction on parking. And so if that becomes an issue, you can craft your own deed and enforce it how you need to. Two more things. One is this city has a significant need for rental properties that are multiple bedrooms for larger families. I know that because I've been part of the discussions with that. And so it's a product that's not built very often, and it's very much in need. My last point is this. The notion that a conditional use permit somehow is noble is incorrect. The history and roots of a conditional use permit are dubious. They've been used throughout the history of this country to do a lot of unfortunate things and keep people from living in certain neighborhoods, whether it be by race or class or what have you. So it's not necessarily the tool that is, best suited, for the types of things that we think it might be. It has its history. It's not always a good history, but it's still in the general planning profession and in our code. So I just wanted to point that out because that sort of coin has two sides. So anyway, with those, I will be in support of the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Danley. Any other discussion? Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. John, good? Okay. All right. I'll also be supporting the motion. I agree with Commissioner Danley's comments. There is a housing lack in this city, and we need to improve that. And I think this is an appropriate location for that, as the applicant pointed out. There are no variance requests here. We're meeting setbacks. We're adding improvements as the city requested. So I think that it's hard to say no, to be quite honest. So with that, we'll go ahead and call the roll. Again, recommending approval on SUB 22-55 and approving PUD 22-53. Motion by Commissioner Danley, seconds by Commissioner Gillespie. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Schaefer.
Aye.
Squires.
Aye.
Blanchard.
Aye.
Gillespie.
Aye.
Danley.
Aye.
Mooney.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we are adjourned.